And minutes are approved. We're going to agenda review. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Bennett. Just a few items. Number 17, Healthcare Agency. Second amendment to the agreement with Amita Darwat, MD. The revised Exhibit 1 has been submitted. Item 34, Public Works Agency. A public hearing regarding the proposed adjustment to the sewer service charge for Ventura Waterworks District Number 1, Moore Park. Protest letters from Bill Mollering and Russell DeGood have been submitted. On the agenda, page 8, number 35, County Executive Office. Public hearing regarding the adoption of the Second Amendment, market-based adjustments to the 2013-2016 MOA with IUOE Local 51. Agenda title only, revised to add no material impact on funding status of retirement system. Agenda page 8, item 36, CEO's office, public hearing regarding the adoption of the Second Amendment.
Me.
Sure.
When you're saying page 8, 36 and 35 are not on that page. So why don't you just give us the agenda? Why don't you just give them the item? Give us the item numbers. Right?
Yeah, item 36. So the first one was 35.
Up to 35. That's the one. Okay. Process page 7. Yeah.
And then
okay.
Item 36.
Got it.
CEO's office, public hearing regarding the adoption of the Second Amendment to the MOA with the VEA. Agenda title only, revised to add no material impact on funding status of retirement system. Finally, addendum agenda item 54, County Executive Office, adoption of a resolution to establish 17 classifications and salary ranges and to delete 29 classifications and salary ranges. All documents have been distributed and posted.
And that'll be the CEO's office?
Yes, that's
item 54.
Item 54, right.
Item 54.
Yes.
All right. Supervisors, any other modifications to the agenda? All right. Hearing none, we're ready to. We need a. Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as modified. We're ready to vote. And now I'm delighted to have, for our moment of inspiration, foster parent Mariana Abarta. Mariana has foster credentials with her that'll stay in the back of the room while she's up here speaking, right?
But a little quieter that way.
It always warms us up to be able to see a baby carriage in the back of the room, right?
Good morning, everybody. I'll start with a little bit of history. We've been foster parents since, 29 years, almost 30 years in December. We've had about 90 babies. I prefer babies because they're not as scary to me. I'm an OB nurse, so I'm used to newborns. And because I'm a nurse, I get mostly medically fragile and special needs infants, which I thrive on. They're hard. They're a lot of work, but it's so very rewarding. When we started, our own children were one was just starting junior college, the other one was in high school, and then our daughter was in junior high. And it was really interesting. The boys both had negative responses. Oh, Mom, does that mean we'll have to have baby stuff all over the house? And the other one said, well, I'm not babysitting. I said, no, that's okay. Our daughter thought, ooh, that sounds like fun. So we started with the knowledge that if everybody didn't agree with it, that would be it. This was my thing that I thought I needed to be doing. And if the family didn't all fall into place, then that wasn't the right thing to do. Well, our boys were the first to volunteer to babysit, and our daughter has just been wonderful. And I've got to say, over the years, that was probably one of the best forms of birth control for our children. Because they learned that babies aren't always just cute, sweet, smiley little things. They come with issues. They come... we haven't had any that have come with any diseases, luckily, but... they make bad smells. They spit up on you. They make a mess. When they're old enough to begin to crawl around, they get into things. And so they've learned over the years, watching us, how to parent. And I must say they are really good parents themselves now. It's wonderful to see. And to see some of these little babies, a lot of them we follow up on. Several of our friends have adopted some of our foster babies. And we just recently had a visit from Florida with an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old children that were adopted by some friends of ours. And the follow-up, they're not all easy. Some of them are drug babies. They go with lifelong issues. But to see them growing up and being able to be productive, to be able to follow up. And we had one little baby that had a heart transplant in March. And they live close to us, so we go see them often. And she just had her 3rd birthday, so we took her birthday present. It's wonderful to see the change in her now as opposed to what she was like before she had the heart transplant. It's just been a terrific experience for me. We're beginning to have some issues with health care. And I guess that's going to be a problem for a while. But so far, I'm fighting tooth and nail to get services for them and to get referrals for them and to get medical care for them. And I love doing what I'm doing. I guess that's all I have to say.
Oh my goodness, that's a great. This year we've every month had a different foster parent come in and for our moment of inspiration, and the cumulative impact of all of you coming, and each one of you has a different slice sort of the foster care program, and 90 babies essentially that have passed through. The idea that
fortunately not all at once.
Yeah.
I like them in small increments of twos.
the special bond that must take place with when your friends adopt a baby that you've gotten over the critical time, and the friends adopt, and you get to watch that child grow up, and some friends.
Yeah, we kind of switch from foster mom to grandparents.
Right.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to see them grow up.
And it's inspirational for us and reminds us how important this work is that's going on. We sit up here and we do this job, and we have to fund the foster care program, but there's so much more to it than that. But we hope it's also inspirational to people listening out there to consider becoming foster parents, and that's one of the reasons for us to have this as a moment of inspiration. You've been able to carve out a slice that works for you, and that is babies. That's what you're good at, and the impact it had on your children is a gift that no amount of education could ever have given them.
Right. There's nothing like hands-on
right,
living with them.
in terms of doing that.
Right.
So thank you for taking the time to come down and grace us with that. But more importantly, on behalf of 90 kids, thank you, because most of them have difficulty probably getting around to saying thank you, but thank you for taking care of 90
they say
of our...
thank you in a lot of different ways, too.
Yeah, they sure do, don't they?
Hugs and cuddles, and that's a nice thing.
But thank you for doing that for 90 of our kids, because there really are our kids out there and stuff,
Yeah.
so really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. How about a big hand for her?
Thank you.
That was great. Okay, we have been inspired. That was great. But we have the consent agenda, items 10 through 24. Do we have any public speakers on the consent calendar? Okay, no public speakers on the consent calendar. We're ready for a motion. We have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. We're ready to vote. And all of the consent items have been approved. We're now at the public comment part of our agenda, item 8. And we have 3 public speakers. Our first public speaker is Barry Gabrielson. Mr. Gabrielson? Oh, I meant to tell her that. Yeah. Great. Good. Thank you. Mr. Gabrielson, you want to just give him 1 second to pass this out?
Sure.
My guess is you'll appreciate us having those rather than them being passed out while you're speaking. Okay, Mr. Gabrielson, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Barry Gabrielson. I'm from the Castle and the Caneo area, unincorporated area of Newbury Park. Below the attachments, you're going to see pictures of 4 public residential sidewalks adjacent to my home that are owned by the county. You can see that the County Department of Transportation marked my sidewalks that are flat. They came by. The first picture you will see, one of the areas is 1/116th of an inch raised. Did it stop the county from marking the sidewalk? No. The second picture is my flat sidewalk in front. Actually, not mine. It's actually owned by the county. The third picture is a crack that's 1/1000th of an inch wide, marked by the county. The fourth picture that you will see is wet. And are you passing down the pictures?
Pictures are coming.
So the fourth picture is the sidewalk is wet. So I determined that the Department of Transportation assumes that a wet sidewalk is dangerous and needs to be completely repaired. I've asked people in my district to take copies and pictures of their sidewalks that are 1/1000th of inch raised that doesn't meet any criteria. I've asked the county, I've asked every supervisor here what the legal criteria is for an out-of-repair sidewalk. The answer is silence. The answer from the Department of Transportation is silence. County Council is silence. The letter that I wrote to the County Council said that they don't have any criteria since 1961. So how do you mark sidewalks without criteria? You can't. The first document that I presented to you in this document is the Code of Ethics, and I want to read something really quickly here. It says, expose corruption wherever it's discovered, and to uphold these principles, ever conscious that the public office is a public trust. In July, I wrote a letter to the Department of the County Council. It's called the Public Records Act 5250. I wrote this letter in July, sent it to the County Council. The County Council refuses to comply with any of my requests. I asked them for legal criteria, won't provide it. I asked them for the Ordinance 4355, how they justified an illegal ordinance, won't provide it. I asked them for letters for the adjacent property owners, won't provide it. 6250 is not optional. I sent a letter to Supervisor Park. She says, I'm going to get that information. They have 10 working days to comply with the law. Their answer is no, they're not going to comply. Not going to comply with state law. There's a letter that was sent by Thomas Temple on page 2. He puts down in his letter on August 6th, should you have any further information, you may write me at the above address. I wrote him on August 8th. I have still yet to receive a response back. He has 10 days. Doesn't comply. Doesn't comply with the law. Just ignores it. General law cities versus charter cities. A general law city, or actually a county, is the Ventura County. A charter city is like San Jose. The difference between a general law city is that it's bound by general and state law. The charter city has supreme authority over municipal affairs. So when you take a San Jose ordinance and you apply it to Ventura County, it's illegal. Because a charter city is completely different than a general law city and county, and everybody in this area knows that. They did it anyways. They signed the ordinance, which is illegal. Butch Britt writes a letter saying that the counties are concurrently liable with the adjacent property owner. Not in your ordinance. You transferred 100%. He also wrote, I have to go quickly here. He also wrote that the liability is not imposed by the State and Highways Code. State law. Well, where's your authority? You have no authority to sign the 2006 ordinance. It's illegal and unconstitutional, and we're not following an illegal. It has to be voided. 4350 says that to maintain and repair a sidewalk shall be owed in duty to the member of the public to keep the maintenance of the sidewalk area in a safe and non-dangerous position. Williamson, Foster, and Schaefer versus Lehman doesn't allow you to transfer any liability. These are 2 state laws. California state laws doesn't allow you to pass zero responsibility to the adjacent property owner when you sign the ordinance. Did you care? No. It's illegal. The next picture, real quickly, is a picture of my property line. My picture of my property line says it's 56 feet from sidewalk to sidewalk. That is county owned sidewalk controlled by the county, by law. 3 property maps prove that in the county. I asked the county to prove their point. The answer is we're not going to prove anything. The next...
Mr. Gabrielson, your time is up, so I'll give you a little bit of time to finish up there, but could you make this your conclusion, please?
Okay. The last thing, please look at your file, is I've asked for this. This is a letter that was sent out by Mr. Pratt. Please look at this thing from the County of Ventura. The enclosed photograph shows that the sidewalk on your property has significant damage and needs to be repaired or replaced. I've asked the questions for the last year of the county. This is county property, owned and controlled by the county. Number 2, has a significant damage. Based on what? You have no legal criteria on an since 1961. I've asked each one of you, show me the legal criteria. Is it half an inch? Is it an inch? Is it 2 inches? The state law says it's an inch and a half. I've asked you these questions, and your answer is, I'll just ignore him. I'm entitled to an answer. Where is the legal criteria today? The answer from the county council's office is we're not going to comply. You have no legal criteria. You can't mark sidewalks over the last 20 years. You can't define what an out of repair sidewalk and a dangerous sidewalk. These people owe their money back for the last 20 years. They owe their money back.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Gabrielson.
And if I may, Supervisor, as you know, Mr. Gabrielson, we're going to have this issue on sidewalks come back to the Board of Supervisors at a public hearing in October. And at that hearing, we're going to be discussing both the policy, revisiting the policy regarding who should be paying for the repair of sidewalks. Also consider the option of doing grinding for those areas that have just a minimal damage. But I think you make a really good point that we should also know what the criteria is for when a sidewalk should be repaired. So we'll ask that that be incorporated in that report that comes back to us.
Linda, can I just ask you one question here? The state law, the state of California law says between 1 and 1.5 inch.
And it
that
should
is considered
definitely
dangerous.
be,
And
it
you
should
told
be
me
known.
maybe it's going to be 1/2 inch. So if you put down 1/2 inch, we're not following it.
Well, let's
You're gonna
find
not
out
violate
what they
state law.
decide, and I hope you'll come to that hearing too, so we can...
How long is this going to take, Linda? I've been after this for years for you to give to somebody here to give me an answer. Show me the
Well,
legal
hopefully
criteria
in
today.
October it will be
October
before
28th
us.
till November to December and go on next year.
Okay, but we are going
It's
to be
not
looking at it
responsible.
again.
Thank you.
Before I go to the next speaker, I just want a county council letter from Mr. Temple, Assistant County Counsel's Office. I note he makes a statement here. I just want to clarify your third paragraph. I'm sorry, you're done, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking
Thank you.
to County Council. It says, your request appears to seek records protected by the attorney-client privilege. Your request is denied as to those materials.
Yes, that's part of the response because
Okay. So a response has been given to Mr. Temple that why some of the records that he's asking for have not been provided to him.
correct.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Our next speaker is Jim Brevard.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning,
Bennett.
Mr.
My name is
Brevard.
Jim Bovard. I'm a resident of Newberry Park in K Court. Several years ago, we were sent a letter by the county. A resident had complained that they, in their opinion, that our sidewalk was dangerous, deemed to be dangerous. Well, we were sent this letter by the county, and based on their opinion and no criteria explained other than 5,600, which covers the supposedly criteria that doesn't exist. So based on that, I have all of the bills that we paid out of our own pocket to have the county property fixed. So I would like to know to whom and where do I address my invoice to for reimbursement of money spent to have all the work done. And I also have pictures of the work that was done. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the previous complaint, but it kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But we had an official letter saying from the county saying, "Hey, you got to do this. Who are we to complain?" Well, I'm here to complain now and seek for reimbursement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Deborah Pendry. Good morning, Ms. Pendry.
Good morning.
Could you pull those two microphones together a little bit more, too? There we go. I think we'll hear better.
Good morning. Thank you, Council. Oh, sorry, thinking of Ojai Supervisors. My name is Deborah Pendry. I'm the director for the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, and we wanted to share with you that the coalition is hosting a presentation called Restoring Nature with Regenerative Agriculture, Creating Resilient Farms, Landscapes, and Communities. Presenting at this presentation will be Darren Doherty and John Rulak, and this is on this coming Thursday, September 11th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Ojai Valley Women's Club, which is located at 441 East Ojai Avenue. Darren Doherty is a fifth-generation Australian farmer and has been involved in the design and development of nearly 2,000, mostly broad-acre projects across 5 continents and close to 50 countries. John Rulak is the founder and CEO of Nutiva. He is a local food and organic food advocate. They will be speaking on carbon farming and the Regrarian strategy. Regrarian is a blend of regenerative agrarian and coined by Darren to describe those who are actively undertaking the process of regenerating, restoring, rehabilitating, rehabitating, rekindling, and in general, rebooting healthy production landscapes. Regrarians look at climate, geography, water, access, forestry, buildings, fencing, soils, marketing, and energy. Joining Mr. Doherty in a panel discussion after the presentation will be Supervisor Bennett. Thank you, sir. Mary Burgeon, who's a ranch manager and avocado grower in Ojai, and Connor Jones, who is a permaculture farmer in Ojai. And we are strongly encouraging ranchers and farmers to attend this presentation. If we look at our county's agricultural contribution in terms of building healthy soil and carbon sequestering, plants and food take care of themselves actually with vigor. The beauty and intelligence of nature continues to show itself if we look at our agriculture through the soil and carbon sequestering. Thank you.
I just would like to mention, Deborah, ever since you guys have started the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, it's just been such a force for positive change in the Ojai Valley and in Ventura County. So you guys have just really stayed positive, and I really appreciate that. The other thing is this speaker coming from Australia, I'm really anxious to hear, because Australia, after 12 years of drought, dramatically changed their water policies. They ended sort of the balkanization of water in Australia and came up with a much more coherent, centrally organized policy towards water. And so it'll be very good for us in the Ojai Valley and in Ventura County to hear from her and be able to ask her some questions about that water policy in addition to the other things she's going to talk about. But overall, I just want to say thank you. You guys have really been out there for issue after issue, but always trying to create some positive change for particularly the Ojai Valley. So thank you very much.
Thank you for saying
Appreciate
that,
having
sir.
you here.
Appreciate it.
And Chair Bennett, regarding the previous speaker, Mr. Bovard, I did want to point out that at the beginning of the year, we actually had a motion here at the Board of Supervisors to repay residents who have already paid for their sidewalks. And our county council has told us that it would be considered a gift of public funds, so we weren't legally allowed to repay. So I just wanted to let you know that we had made that attempt.
I believe that it would not be a gift from a public fund. It would be a reimbursement. Okay? So there's a difference between gift and reimbursement. Money's already spent.
Yes, I agree. I'm just telling you that you did have some support here at the board for that. So we just have to make sure that what we do is legal.
I hope that the board can take it, readdress this issue, and get it done, and do the
Okay, board members, we are, let's do our board comments. I am going to try to get through, don't have too many of the other agenda items also. Supervisor Zaragoza, welcome back after a long break.
Thank you. It's good to be back, and thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. And I'd like to adjourn in memory of the folks on this list. And I had the opportunity to, Governor Brown invited me to a luncheon in Sacramento to honor the president of Mexico that was here in California. And I took a letter with me thanking the governor for the help that he's given us in the health issues here in Ventura County. Additionally, we had one of my assistants while I was off attended the Labor Day event here in Ventura. Apparently the Labor Day event was transferred from Camarillo to Ventura, and I understand that it was pretty well attended. I also had one of my other assistants attend the military appreciation dinner in Oxnard, to commend our military folks here from Ventura County and also other military officials. And also I want to commend our fire chief for being a member of the Dodger team. I see him back there. He was a good job, and I understand you there was a strike that you did. I want to commend you for that too, and that's all I have right. And it's good to be back.
Casey wouldn't stand up and face him. Right?
Thank you, Chief.
Supervisor Foy.
I just want to adjourn the memory list. Hope everybody had a good summer. That's it.
Great. Supervisor Long.
I too have a list to submit to adjourn in memory, and had a nice break, and I'll spare you all the 700 slides I have.
Supervisor Parks.
I'd also ask that we close in honor of the people on this list. And then also thank the fire department working with the animal control in capturing that white cobra. And also I wanted to laud our sheriff's department too for a major bust in the Santa Rosa Valley of a marijuana cultivation. We're seeing that more often. And then some great events that I was able to attend. One was for the Circles Community Outreach, which is an organization that just started a nonprofit and looking at how to assist people out of poverty, not only in housing, but then taking the extra step to see how we can assist them towards good jobs and being able to permanently remain out of poverty. And then also attended Commander Oxner's retirement lunch, and that was such a wonderful individual we had representing us at the Sheriff's Department and with our jails, and just so much appreciated the great work that she has done, so it was nice to go to her retirement lunch. And then also attended, I know our CEO and Mr. Pratt and others were out there, one of Reddy Pacala's many great things he's brought to our county. We were able to get some new piping out in Somas that resulted in paving the alley behind the post office, something that they've been trying to do for some 30 years. And so it was nice to have the community out there for that and recognizing that. And then I just wanted to comment too. There's a really nice article in the paper about one of the doctors from our hospital system, Dr. Fankhauser, and seeing that he's going back to Liberia to help people and the outbreak of Ebola. And I just can't think of something more brave and committed and humane. So I just, he is my hero, and I'm just so happy that he can do this, and how we need these people to be able to do that, to get doctors out there and ending that crisis. So, good guy.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to do, well, let me do. I'm going to actually do that at the end of my adjourn of memories, but I'd just like to point out over the course of the break, things slowed down a little bit, but we all attended a number of events. One that I spoke at, Citizens for Peaceful Resolution, wanted to do a presentation on campaign finance reform. And I just want to point out that it's very frustrating, but it's just the way things happen with campaign finance reform. A bill passed the Senate that would allow the Fair Political Practice Commission to enforce local campaign laws, which has really been one of the big problems with local campaign laws, is there's not enough activity to justify setting up a whole, infrastructure. Here you have that infrastructure already created at the state level. The Senate passes a bill that would allow any local government that wanted to contract with the FPPC. Orange County, by the way, is the county that made the initial request, and they expanded it to all local governments. Senate passed it overwhelmingly. One person in the Assembly, the chair of the committee, simply killed the bill. And it just shows you what the influence of money is in politics and what's wrong with the system. When more than 80% of the people in this country are overwhelmingly supportive of campaign finance reform, when you have the reaction since 2010, by the way, the polling has gone off the charts since the Citizens United ruling, that we have a broken system when it comes to this public finance. And yet you can have in the state of California a bill that has already passed the Senate and gets killed by the committee chairman in the Assembly, and you don't get a big front page story about that. You don't get anything about that. That's what the most corroding influence of money in politics is, what it blocks from happening, what it can keep from happening. More than what it buys them, it keeps things from happening to solve problems that we have, and this is a significant problem that we certainly have out there. So I won't go into the other things, but that was the presentation this past weekend, Citizens for Peaceful Resolution. The other thing I'd like to do is ask the board to take a look, and I'd like to ask them to put up the picture that we have up there. And I think most of you will recognize this gentleman. And I just want to do it as an extra tribute to him. So this is Larry Miller. Larry Miller is a longtime trustee for the Community College District. He was a biology professor, but most important from our board's perspective, he was a passionate, committed advocate for foster youth. He's the person that every time we would have the transitional youths in here, every time we would have the scholarships in here for the kids from the foster youth, Larry was there. And if you look at that twinkle in his eyes in this picture, I think it really captures sort of the spirit of, they called him, at Casa Pacifica, they called him Papa Larry. And he touched so many kids, and he was there for so many kids, that I just think it's really appropriate for us to stop for a moment and recognize somebody who helped this Board of Supervisors, helped this county government, and helped the citizens of Ventura County really be what we said we all need to be, which is we need to be the extended family for the foster kids of Ventura County. And I'm sure that if there's anything that happens with his passing, he would like us to use this moment to sort of reach out and try to get the message out to more and more people in Ventura County that we need people to step up. Larry did not do what we've been asking people to do, become a foster parent in the technical sense of the word, but what Larry did was became a foster parent in the extended family sense of the word. He was there for all of those kids. Kids would call Larry at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm stuck someplace in Ventura County. If you were a transitional kid, you had Larry's number, and you could call him at any time. He'd come and get you out of a jam, get you home, or whatever. It's a remarkable contribution that he made, and we're all going to miss Papa Larry. I'd like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the other people on this list also. Okay, I know that we have a couple of these things we want to do before we start our time certain. Yeah. What's that? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I did not see it.
Thank you, Chair Bennett. Just one additional quick note. We just learned yesterday that the U.S. News & World Report apparently is coming out with a list of the top residency programs in the country, and we understood that our program was going to be ranked pretty highly. Well, turned out they were ranked number 1 in the country. So wow. Congratulations, Dr. Wong, Barry, Joe, and everybody. Great job.
I did not see that. That's great. Yeah, thanks for announcing that. Number 1 in the country. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
We're
was.
going to be looking for a new CEO if anybody wants to be. Wow. County Council, get us out of this jam. Right, all right, there we go. So, Kathleen, that's embargoed. If you'll help us out with that, right? All right, we would appreciate. What's that?
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow? All right. There we go. Okay.
Good job, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. But anyway, thank you. I mean, let's not use that to distract
No,
from.
'cause it's
Yeah,
exciting.
great, a great accomplishment for a residency program to pull that off. And you know, one of the things of having a ranking like that is it means the top students in the country will be more interested in coming here, and then will be more likely to stay in Ventura County. So medical care in Ventura County improves because we can keep those residents, we can have those residents come here and stay here.
Mr.
Supervisor.
Chair, I'd like to ask that the CEO work with our team, and let's bring a presentation in here, and
Great.
let's really hear about our residency program, get a good update, because it is marvelous, obviously, now very
Great suggestion.
successful.
Right. All righty. I'm going to jump right to item 45 because we have physicians that we want to get back to work, and that's the approval of a grand jury report on healthcare records processing and procedures. Mr. Carroll, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board, CEO Powers, Matt Carroll with the County Executive Office. Agenda item 45, request your board's approval to the May 29th report by the grand jury titled Healthcare Records Processing and Procedures. The report required responses from your board and requested responses from the CEO's office and the healthcare agency. The healthcare agency did prepare a detailed response, and we in turn prepared a joint response for your board and our office, and those are both submitted for your approval today. I want to make one note, as noted in the board letter, in addition to the standard responses to the findings and recommendations, we did provide, as well as the healthcare agency provided, responses to many of the facts, well, all the facts in the report, because we felt there was important context and information missing from those. So this report includes something a little bit of the unusual out of there. So with that, members of the healthcare agency and our office are here to answer any questions your board may have.
Okay. Do we have any questions on this item?
Just to
Supervisor
comment
Long.
that I thought it was important to have a very thorough response, and I appreciate the work that was put into doing that. As we all lived through the implementing of this, we knew that it was a significant challenge and very complicated. But I think with this report, it explains some of that now and will help the public who may wish to read it, and I would hope the grand jury that that we fully engaged and fully had the team in place to make sure we moved as quickly and as efficiently as possible in implementing this. So thank you for your good work on it.
All right, we're ready for.
Move the approval of the response.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve that response. That's item 45. While we're there, Mr. Carroll, and you're up, let's just quickly do 46.
Sure. 46 is the draft responses to the May 14th report titled Firefighting Air Assets, the Camarillo Springs Fire. This report required responses by the sheriff and your board, the latter of which was prepared and drafted by our office. We also invited the fire district to prepare a response not to the actual facts or findings or recommendations, but to some comments in the report that needed some clarification and concerns, and the fire chief had made those publicly, and we invited him to include those in the report as well. So those are provided in the drafts as part of your board's formal approval. So with that, members of the Sheriff's Department as well as the Fire District and our office are here to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions on this item? We have a motion and a second for approval. We're ready to vote.
With that, I'd like to thank and recognize Terry Yanez in our office, as well as Frank Chow and Terry Theobald in the Healthcare Agency for their work in putting these draft responses together. So.
Thank you very much. Let's get the librarian out of here and the sheriff out of here. I don't mean that in a negative way, but item 44, ratification approval of the 18th Amendment.
This is the amendment under which the City of Ojai and its unincorporated areas provide additional library service to the community in extra hours and extra materials. This is the 18th year we've done this.
For 18 years, we have been doing this. The citizens of Ojai have taxed themselves an extra amount to try to have their library open extra hours. It's the kind of thing that we have had in a number of ways cooperation from citizens of Ojai funding various things, and this is one of those. So I'd like to make the motion to approve this item. It's been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. And Sheriff's Office, item 47.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman Bennett and members of the Board of Supervisors and Mr. Powers. First of all, thank you for taking us up here. We certainly appreciate that. For the record, my name is Steve DeCesare, Assistant Sheriff at the Sheriff's Office. We're here today, and also with me is Captain Chris Lathrop, who is one of the project managers on this project. We're here today to ask for your authorization to purchase a new computer-aided dispatch system along with a mobile data computer system and a mobile entry system in the amount of $2,154,854. The CAD system is utilized by our communications specialists in our 911 center. CAD is an integral and primary source of information for our records management system, inmate management system, and mobile reporting entry system used by deputies on their mobile data computers. The CAD system is a mission-critical system that is extremely complex. Any failure to resolve systemic errors in such a mission-critical system can result in catastrophic injury to the public and or the deputies. Our current CAD system is approximately 14 years old. It's antiquated. And in fact, we were notified in June 2010 that the current company that had this program would no longer service it, effective in March 2015. Additionally, our mobile data terminal and mobile report entry system, which are also approximately 14 years old, have also become problematic. The cost to maintain the systems continue to escalate, and try to upgrade the current system is not cost effective for us. With the assistance of respected consulting firm DeltaWorks and our GSA procurement services, we engaged in a lengthy process, took about a year and a half, to identify our current and future needs for our CAD, MDT, and mobile report entry systems. Through the competitive bidding process and subsequent requests for proposals evaluation process, a company called Versaterm was determined to be the best to meet our needs now and in the future. Not only did they finish clearly ahead of all other competitors, they also offered superior customer service for us. We are also requesting additional funding in the amount of $1,310,264 for county IT services development, infrastructure, hardware, training, and a small contingency fund for this project. The overall project is $3,465,118. Captain Chris Lathrop and I are available for any questions that you might have.
Great. Do we have any questions?
I was wondering, how long will this new system be serviced for?
Well, maintaining it, I mean, this one lasted 14 years. I think we usually go 10 to...
5 years contracted.
Well, yeah, they contract for 5 years, but then we're available for each additional year after that. This current system went for 14 years. Probably could have maintained it, but the issue is the company would no longer service it. We would have to go with time and materials. It's getting antiquated. So to say exactly how long the next system would last, I don't know for sure.
For the benefit of the Sheriff's Office, we have had considerable discussions here in the board room about how long the maintenance contract should extend for any new computer software programs that we purchase like this. And we've been really trying to extend those because we're pretty frustrated with they just say we're not going to service it any longer and force you to buy a new one. So we are where we are with this one, but just so if you'll pass that back up the chain, we certainly like more than 5 years before we actually commit to a new contract for software.
And I'm sure we'll go beyond that. And we work closely with IT services also to make sure that we get the best product available for us and contracts.
Well, it certainly is needed. You don't want to have misrouted calls and not being able to get to an emergency, and because of the communication. So I do understand the importance of this, and appreciate you coming forward with it and make sure that we can keep you guys going.
All right.
Go ahead and make the motion.
All right, we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. All righty. And we little bit late. Thank you very much. That
Okay,
motion
thank you.
passes, all right?
Thank you.
We'll hold off on our other policy items. We'll go to our 9:15 time certain item. That's a letter from a board item from Supervisor Zaragoza and myself. The concept of this is that it asks us to commit to 4 policies. 1, expand the efforts made with our last 2 salary increases to have a growing part of future salary package increases be composed of across-the-board fixed dollar increases that allow our lower-income employees to benefit more from a payroll increase. I want to emphasize that we're talking about a part of the future salary package, not necessarily all of that, but it's trying to have that become sort of a recognized part of our approach. 2nd, advocate for increases to the minimum wage. 3rd, encourage citizens to support businesses that pay employees living wages and provide appropriate work schedules. And 4, encourage our citizens to achieve the highest level of skill training possible by taking advantage of our educational institutions and organizations such as the Workforce Investment Board. We have a crisis in this country in that there has been essentially flat income growth in terms of wages, particularly people at the bottom. You hear the phrases of the hollowing out of the middle class. It's not the cause of the problem, but it's a symptom of the problem, is that the growing income inequality in this country is a significant problem, and we have had a pattern, as Supervisor Zaragoza and I mentioned in our resolution, we've had a pattern that in the history of this country, growing income inequality ultimately results in economic problems for everybody in the country down the road. So I have a very short PowerPoint that I'll move through to try to help make the case for why I believe we should do this, and then I'll turn it over to Supervisor Zaragoza after that. So if we could have the PowerPoint come up, please. Mostly this is information from 2 recent articles, but today, when we see the balloons in back, we're going to be celebrating Hunger Action Month, or National Hunger Action Month, and we're going to be celebrating that here in Ventura County. So it's appropriate that we consider policies to improve workers' ability to feed their families, because we have many people, and you talk to the people involved in fighting hunger here, that we have many people whose paychecks simply don't make it to the end of the month, and they don't have enough money to feed their families. And we shouldn't in this country have a situation where people that work full-time are not paid enough to be able to hold things together for their families and get through. So next slide, please. And I'm happy to click it myself if you guys want to do that. But so this is the first thing in our thing, which was paying a fixed dollar amount. Worker A gets paid $35, worker B $135, so there's a pay gap of $100,000. And across the board raise of 2% to a worker earning $35,000 a year is an increase of $700 there in the red. That's a little hard to see. For a working earner $135,000, the increase would be $2,700. Next slide, please. The pay gap, the net result, the pay gap between the two grows from $100,000 to $102,000, and income inequality grows. Next slide. So across the board, fixed dollar increases as a part of our pay package, which is what we've done, by the way, the last 2 times. We did a $750 across the board, and then we gave a percentage increase after that. And it allows the lower income workers to benefit more, and it keeps the income gap from growing as much. In the last example, the $2,700 and the $700 essentially results in a $3,400 increase. If you divided that, if you said, okay, that amount that we're going to be using for that, if we gave $1,400 to each employee, it's much more meaningful to the lower income employee. And I think that makes common sense. It's something that we have, again, a concept that we've engaged in the last 2 times, and this is a resolution to say we'd like to grow that concept to the extent that we can. We know there are a lot of variables in there. There we go. This is the minimum wage article. The second request is for advocating for increases in the minimum wage, making that part of our legislative platform. And this is an article in the Washington Post, just August 28th, so very recent. Wages have pretty much been flat or on a decline since the start of the recession. In fact, the only group that hasn't seen a drop in real wages since 2007 are workers with advanced degrees, for which wages are basically flat. Between 2007 and 2014, wages fell by nearly 5% for people with high school diplomas. And the Ventura County Star, just September 1, so very recent, according to Federal Reserve figures, growth in real wages has been basically stagnant for the last 34 years. Wage rise, the workforce, except for the gilded top 5%, has been marching in place. And inflation-adjusted wages for every income group has fallen over the last year. Now, this is wages, not income that people derive from other forms like investments, et cetera, despite the increasingly robust economic recovery. The exception was the 10% at the bottom of the heap who saw at least a 0.3% wage increase, much of that due to state-mandated increases in the minimum wage. And I would offer to you that's one of the pieces of justification for the minimum wage going up. And then to try to emphasize that this is can and should be sort of a bipartisan effort, I believe. We all, in the long run, are at risk if we don't, across the board, have income security for everybody, at least everybody that's willing to work hard in our society. But two leading advocates of Republican reform here, and their credentials are up there, and this is what both Gerson and Weiner said. And that is, many conservatives fail to see the extent to which equal opportunity, a central principle of our national self-understanding, is becoming harder to achieve. It is a well-documented fact that in recent years, economic mobility has stalled for many poor Americans, resulting in persistent intergenerational inequality. That's the end of their quote. The next slide is a quote that does not come from them. I just wanted to be clear about that. And this is the end of that article in the Star, and I think it's just one that captures what I hope we would all consider. That is, when it comes to the persistence of poverty and inequality, it'll take all of our resources and capacity for cooperation, along with a more sophisticated, comprehensive understanding of human capital, to overcome our domestic squabbling and mount a concerted offensive. But we have a serious challenge in this country, and we need to try to do something. And this is a modest attempt, I think, at our part to at least commit to some principles that would help address this, being the largest employer here, and that we certainly want to try to lead by example here at the county level. So with that, Supervisor Zaragoza.
Thank you, Supervisor. You know, one of the things that we mentioned in the resolution is that since the last recession, the many workers and families have not reattained their middle class income levels. And I believe, that the growing income disparity threatens, all our citizens' long-term well-being. Ventura County is probably the highest cost of living county in the state. And in fact, I had one of my staff look over at the census that in the El Rio, Nyland Acres, and South Oxnard area, as an example, there's about 13, almost 14% poverty level. And we're talking about people earning $2,500 a month, maybe up to $2,500 a month, maybe $27,000 a year, and there's quite a few people at that level that have to go for food stamps and so forth, and we need to help those individuals bring the standard of living up to a livable amount, because in the long run it affects all of us. But I believe that we need to assist those individuals, and this ordinance, I think, or this resolution would help attain that level of competency for all those people that need that cost of living to keep up with the rest of us. So,
thank you. We have a public speaker unless we have questions. Mr. Ed Lacey, former Supervisor Susan Lacey's husband. Is that how you're known?
That's right.
Well, good morning, Supervisor Bennett, members of the board.
Good morning, Mr. Lacey.
I'm here today representing the Central Coast Alliance United for a Sustainable Economy, more mercifully known as CAUSE, easier to remember and easier to say. I'd like to start out by, well, first of all, CAUSE supports the position set forth in the board letter, but I'd like to start out reading a few lines written by Anatole France in the year 1894. He wrote, "The law in its majestic equality forbids the rich and the poor alike to sleep under bridges, to beg in the streets, and to steal bread." Well, 120 years later, things have gotten better in many ways, but we can still understand the ironical truth of the comment that Franz was making in those lines. Cause supports these proposed policies for the same reasons that are really set forth in the whereases in the board letter and in the PowerPoint presentation by Supervisor Bennett. There's a very serious, significant problem, the problem of income inequality, and particularly, as Supervisor Zaragoza pointed out, Ventura County. I wrote an article for the Civic Alliance a while back based on the latest figures at that time indicated that 11.3% of the residents of Ventura County were below the poverty level. That means about 90,000 people in our county are faced every day with the brutal fact of poverty. And it is a brutal fact because it determines your access to every opportunity in life, your access to decent housing, your access to health care, your access to decent food, access to education for your children. They all go together. It's part of one thing, and we at Cause, and I personally, I'm very pleased to see the county possibly taking this position. It's part of a legacy of this county of caring about people. This county has always understood that compassion and good government go together. So I would ask the board to adopt these four meaningful policies and put this county on record as being willing to face this problem. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, you know, the average rent right now is about, for even a two-bedroom, is about $1,500 a month. And people earning at $2,500 with a family of four, they just absolutely cannot afford.
It's out of reach.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for the motion on this, and happy to have a discussion of any sort if anybody has any comments they want to make. But let's go ahead and get the motion on the floor.
Okay, I'll make some comments.
Okay.
I appreciate you're trying to find a way to do some things here. I guess I'm surprised the unions aren't here because I could see why they wouldn't support a thing like this. Trying to get into a situation where you tell one group this is what we're going to do our base and this is going to limit some other people, it doesn't work. But what it really is bothersome in this is this talks about inequality and all that, but it doesn't talk about the things that Washington does, Sacramento does, or even our own county does to cause a lot of these same problems. We talk about the poor, we want to see greater opportunities, greater jobs. Supervisor Zaragoza talks about prices of housing to rent gets very expensive, but our land use policies cause us not to have enough housing for people. A lot of our land use and some of our regulation in this own county causes people like Howling Nursery to go to Utah to build more tomato factories, some of the packing plants go out of the state, and out of our own county because we do some of these things, and it becomes so expensive, and so we cause a lot of these own issues ourselves by a lot of our stuff. There's no question. We need to make sure that we give people the opportunity to grow and to expand and live the American dream. But we got to be careful when we say there's just inequalities that's happening without us trying to do our part here to make sure it happens. And I think that becomes a real problem. I'm not an advocate of minimum wage because I think it limits people, because at some point somebody says the minimum wage is $10 and there's a job worth $5, I'm not going to pay that because it's too expensive. It hurts teenagers. I mean, there's all this evidence that works. Yes, it says the lower people had gotten a little bit more. Well, across the board, our goal, I believe, as leaders, and what should be in this country, has made this country great, is this the land of opportunity, the opportunity to grow and to excel and to have the opportunity to say, you know what, I can come from the bottom to the top, and I don't need anybody's help. Just get out of my way and let me have the opportunities. Let the jobs be here. One of the things that people don't understand, I think, is they miss. We hear this jobs going overseas, and you hear of, okay, a couple million jobs have gone overseas. Do you realize that a lot of these companies have tens of millions of jobs overseas? Not that only 1 million jobs or 2 million have gone overseas, but the opportunity to create new jobs that they were going to do with new products and new ideas they did overseas because it was too expensive and too many regulations to do here. This is part of our issue here. As we continue to move down this path, we start to look like Europe, who did the exact same thing, and jobs went other places, and their poor got poorer. You know, it's interesting when people say, well, we got to do more like Europe. I don't want to be like Europe. The poor in America live better than the middle class in Europe. That is a complete fact of what they have of the things. We have to understand that we have to be very careful here. So, I mean, I appreciate the idea. We want to help our employees. One of the things that we did do is we did say we were going to try to get our lower wage people, our entry level and some of our lower wage, closer to the 100%. And Mr. Powers' office has been trying to work hard to get the outliers there. But, you know, one of the things we didn't do is we didn't raise the upper incomes to some of the people to continue to move. And that's wrong. I just believe that we should not be in a situation to tell people they're inadequate, they're unable, they're not qualified enough to make it on their own. And not that paying the right wages, but give the opportunity for the economy to expand and to grow and let people say, you know what, I need this person. I'm willing to pay them more, and I'm willing to pay them more, and I'm willing to pay them more because they're so good at what they do, because I need them. We saw that when the economy does well. Jobs rise, wages rise. But we have to have that opportunity to get government out of the way. The thing that's scary that is this we talk about is that in Ventura County, one of the most prosperous counties, government is the largest employer. Are you kidding me? Government? Amgen is shrinking from 8,500 down to about 3,500. Haas Automation says we're not going to leave, but we're going to grow our plants out of. It's just too difficult to do business here. Those are the policies that we should be advocating. We should be advocating land use policies that allow. We can't do the things where farm worker housing can't be on ranches. And then you, as Supervisor Zaragoza says, it costs $1,800 or $2,000 or $1,100, whatever number it is, for people to live in an apartment someplace else. We've got to make those policies work so that the people in this county can prosper, and then they can take it and run on their own. You know, government shouldn't be here. Government should be here when they're in need. We are a very generous people. We are very generous. We'll say, here's a helping hand. But we can't enslave them into a system. We got to let people grow and prosper on their own. And our own policies make this very difficult. And so I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I personally wouldn't want to put this on future boards and say, this is what we said 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know, and I sure don't want to be out encouraging and telling who's winners and losers and what business only support these businesses. I don't know. I don't believe government has that opportunity at all. So anyway, just my comments. It really bothers me that we would do something like this. It bothers me the unions don't support this. They're not here advocating for this. And what economic analysis have we done on these kind of policies here? What economic analysis have we done with this kind of a thing?
Mr. Chair,
anyway.
Mr. Chair, item 3, this is encourage citizens to support businesses that pay employees living wages and provide appropriate work schedules. And then number 4 says encourage the citizens to achieve the highest level of skill training possible by taking advantage of our educational institutions, organizations such as workforce investment. We're sharing that. Don't just sit there and let people give you money. We're telling right here, we encourage them to get a higher skill, get a higher level of paying job, and also to support our businesses to pay the living wage. We're asking them to help us too. We're not giving anything away.
That's coming from government. Support only these businesses, pick winners and losers.
We're the leaders.
It doesn't matter. We shouldn't be telling them. If somebody wants to pay, then let them pay what they want to pay, and somebody can leave that job and go get a different job.
But to
I think that's important. But the idea, what legal right do we have to bind future boards? And I don't know, Leroy, what is that deal that we're binding future boards with these kind of policies?
I think as leaders, we need to lead to share that with the public.
I'd happy to hear from our council, but I'll certainly clearly recognize that there's nothing a board can do to tie another board. No. But there's also nothing wrong with a board saying this is what our intention is this board at this point in time. So this doesn't tie anything. This just says these are the resolutions. This isn't an ordinance. This isn't the law. This is a resolution of the Board of Supervisors. But go ahead, Leroy.
That's correct. It's just a statement of the current board's policy. and its future effect will not be binding on future boards, but it would be something that they would consider. And usually if you change policies, that's a deliberate, considered action, but it doesn't bind the future board. They would be free to adopt a different policy.
And we need to support our employees, we need to support our residents to get a higher level of living. I mean, that's important to all of us. It's important to me anyway, and I'm sure for the rest of the
It's important
board.
that everybody said, look, if I need to get a better job, I need a better education, I need to work harder, I need to put more time in, I need to learn, I need to do. That's what people have done this is what made America great. People come from all over the world here. Why? Because the land is paved with gold, but it's not gold of real gold, it's a gold of opportunity to try to do it. That's what changes. So we've got to get all the obstacles out of the way to let them do it. That's my issue here. Is I just struggle with what some of these ideas that tell that people aren't good enough. They're working poor. What's a working poor? Define a working poor. What does that mean? There's people that are working. So I'm not poor. I'm just at the beginning of my career. Yeah, it's hard to make ends meet, but I'm working.
Semantics.
I mean, I don't want. Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
But
I
think
know
we need to help.
we've got 9:30, two 9:30 time certain items. I don't want to hold this up any longer, so I don't want to get into a long debate. And I was hoping, not necessarily would everybody support all of this, but a few of these comments I just want to very quickly respond to because of what has been said. One, the idea that it's land use policies that is causing the problem. I would agree to the extent that there has been support for building high-end housing on the precious land that we have and not building workforce housing, we have a problem. And we have tried to advocate for that. And in fact, almost all of the things that came forward from the Farm Advisory Committee, we adopted to try to make it easier for farm worker housing, et cetera. The second thing is the logic that you share on the minimum wage. If somebody wants to pay $5 an hour, let's let them do that. That logic, if you take that logic to its logical conclusion, you would lower the minimum wage to $2 an hour, and there would be some people that would do that. And I don't think that I think the studies. There are studies that are out there that talk about sort of the impacts and the benefits of the minimum wage, and we saw there lower income people doing better when states did increase their minimum wage. In terms of, you said, what's the definition of the working poor? I'll give you a definition of working poor. Somebody working full time and not able to feed their family. Just a modest income. That's my definition. But the final comment that I would make that I think is completely wrong is your statement that I think is way off the mark is that the poor in America live better than the middle class in Europe. I'll tell you, go to the middle class in France, the middle class in Germany, the middle class in Norway, the middle class in Sweden, and you compare them to the standard of living.
The square footage, the homes, the TVs, the cars, all the stuff they drive.
Okay,
Much more than.
I will enjoy kind of having a debate with you on that at some point in time. But we have the motion in front of us. I think it's time to hear from Supervisor Long.
Just very quick comment, and expected we'd have this kind of a discussion, and it's healthy. And we know we're going to have some disagreement. I'll say that this board has historically taken positions that has raised the bar, that has sent a message to the greater community that says, yes, we do care, we are compassionate, and we would invite the rest of the community to have this discussion with us and to have them look at where they can make changes, both through public policy but through engagement with the community. And that's what this does. I don't see it binding anyone's hands. It opens up for this board, with this resolution, for whatever period of time there's a majority of this board that supports it, to continue having these discussions on either policy things that come to us or opportunities for engagement with the community. The working poor, to me, ask Bonnie Weigel. Ask Bonnie who she sees coming through the food share program, the food banks, the neighborhood food banks. They are, in most cases, two-parent working families who are trying to feed their families, working poor, who need to go at the end of the month to get that extra boost of food because they are working poor. So I think this is, it just raises a bar, sends a message, asks for engagement and discussion with the community on these same points. So support for
Remember, the
value of that.
biggest part of this whole thing is what it does to our employees, fixed dollar amounts, that, the idea that I work here in this county, I work hard, I grow from a $35,000, $40,000 job to an $80,000, to $100,000, and like he said, somebody's getting a 6% increase based on this amount of money, and somebody is getting a 1 or 2%. So there's no advantage to me. That's why the unions aren't here. I can't believe everybody in this county is not in uproar over this kind of idea. The idea is that I get the opportunity to work hard and to achieve. And I should get, and yes, it's one thing it's been, we've done usually across the board percentages. Doesn't matter. Yes, there is some people that get more than others. But it's the way it is. We can't take away that incentive from people, and that's what makes people grow.
I believe
organizations great.
We all should work hard. And I believe
we all
that.
do, but that's what I'm saying. But it doesn't matter that, okay, if we're going to say we're going to give 2%, let's give 2% across the board. We don't go back based on your wage. We didn't say everybody was worth $1,000 or $2,000.
Give those people a helping hand. We all work hard. All of us do.
Everybody does. Yeah.
24/7. So.
I just can't believe this is coming up.
All right.
CEO's allowing this to happen.
I'd like to call for the vote here on this item. And it passes 4-1. We're now, we have two 9:30 items, and Supervisor Long asked for us to very quickly hear item 27, and that is the harvest season.
Yes, thank
And
you.
Why don't we go ahead and have the people for item 26, if you want to come up to the two sides. I know you have easels you want to set up and the balloons, so why don't you start to set that up? Is that all right with you, Supervisor Long?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, all right.
I believe I've invited to the boardroom Cindy Jackson, who is very active with our Heritage Valley Tourism Bureau, and Phil McGrath, who we all know, one of our prominent farmers here in the county, to come in to receive this resolution. What this does, what we have started to do, I think, in the last couple of years, is to celebrate what we all honor and treasure in this county, and that is our agricultural community. And by proclaiming September 20th to November 8th as harvest season, and Cindy, please step up to the podium there. Thank you for coming in, Cindy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. By declaring September 20th through November 8th as harvest season, and as you'll see, that's a little wider window there, and it's purposeful in that we have over the years recognized that our agricultural community does tremendous work in the community in engaging civic pride and the importance of agriculture in our county. And it's been a long-standing policy to preserve and protect our ag lands and to really look at how we can promote agriculture and the agribusiness and the agritourism in our county. The month of October and the whole season of the fall is traditionally recognized as a time that we celebrate harvest and many of the agricultural crops. We see in many of our agritourism sites where there's go search for the perfect pumpkin, go for a hayride, go to a petting zoo, farm fresh vegetables, participate in celebration of harvest activities throughout the county. And it has become a tourist destination online and in many magazines. We promote it, we encourage, and we welcome folks to come and really celebrate with us the importance of this industry. So it is an opportunity for urban residents to learn about agricultural operations and crops. Our local service clubs, food operators provide food booths. They work closely with charities, and they work closely with the nonprofit organizations throughout the county who are very supportive of agriculture. So by recognizing September 20th to November 8th as harvest season in perpetuity, it really opens the opportunity for that celebration to continue on and to have it grow and have both the community and our neighbors come and appreciate what we do in this county in the way of promoting and supporting agriculture. So I'd like to step down, present this to Cindy Jackson, and invite you to say a few words if you'd like, Cindy. And did Mr. McGrath, was he able to show? He's not here yet. Okay. All right. He's busy farming. And appreciate that our agricultural commissioner is here. Thank you for being here. Very important part of our community and promoting the harvest community for agriculture. So I'll step down and present.
All right. Thank you.
I just think this is fabulous to go ahead and help Doing something like this helps tourism. It helps bring dollars into the county, and that's very important. So we're very grateful that we're doing this today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Long. And we're now at our item 26, and we have the opportunity to declare this Hunger Awareness Month in Ventura County. We have presentations here and from Food Share. We have Melissa Livingston and Monica White, who are here. There, thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Where's the other resolution? All right, great. Melissa and Monica, thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers. It's my honor to be here today on behalf of Bonnie Weigel. Her regrets that she cannot be here today. She's actually in Texas, and I think it's somewhat ironic that while she's in Texas, the two reasons she's in Texas is because the state of Texas food banking is interested in what Ventura County is doing, because Ventura County has been recognized by Feeding America and by the California Association of Food Banks for its exemplary performance in food banking. So Texas is wanting to learn a lot more about what we're doing, and one of the integral ingredients to our success is our partnership. It's our partnership with our community, it's a partnership with our stakeholders, and it's a partnership with our county and the collaboration that we hold with the county. I'm proud to be a county employee. I'm also proud to be a member of the Food Share Board. And so I would like to introduce Monica White, who is my colleague and friend in the business of alleviating hunger in our community, and she is a member of the Food Share Board, member of the Executive Committee of the Food Share Board, and she's going to share a little bit of her experience with Food Share and talk a little bit about our current state in our community. So I'll turn it over to Monica.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Don't leave. Good morning. I think most of you know me as Monica White from the Ventura County Star, or Chair Bennett, in your case, the lady who outbid you at the Foothill Technology fundraiser last year.
I still have regrets about that.
Sorry. But what you may not know is I'm also a proud Food Share volunteer board member, and I'm the current secretary of the executive board. When I first moved to Ventura County 15 years ago, I knew very little about Food Share. At first, I thought it had something to do with the Harvest Festival, because there was this big pumpkin in the Food Share logo. And then I thought Food Share was a neighborhood collaborative where people shared their overabundance crop of zucchinis and tomatoes. And when I assumed Food Share was just one pantry in Oxnard, I discovered how wrong I was. A few years ago, through my community relations work at the Star, I was fortunate to take a tour of the Food Share operations. It was then I realized how naive I was to the scope of what Food Share did and why it is commonly referred to as the people's nonprofit. The operation went way beyond the yellow food collection barrels that we would see during the holidays. It was helping thousands of people every month in every corner of our county. My first year on the board was an eye-opener. I had no idea there was a difference between a food pantry and a food bank. I wasn't quite sure what food insecure meant. And one day I had to stop Bonnie mid-sentence and ask her, hold on, what the heck is stone fruit? Don't worry, I will share all my answers that I've found out. I'll start with the food bank, food pantry differentiation. Food Share is a food bank as a designated partner of the National Feeding America Network. We work with 185 individual nonprofit agencies or food pantries throughout Ventura County to distribute our budgeted 11 million pounds of food each year. Those important partners are represented here today by the 185 balloons as held by our Food Share staff and volunteers. There you are. Say hello. So who are our friends who receive this much-needed food? 1 in 6 Ventura County residents are food insecure, which means they aren't sure where their next meal is going to be coming from. In children, the number is much higher, and 1 in 5 is food insecure. Each month, Food Share and our partners help feed nearly 75,000 friends and neighbors. And what kind of food are they receiving? Of that 11 million pounds, 60% of it is healthy, nutritious, fresh fruits and vegetables, as donated to us by our local Ventura County ag industry. And some of that is that so-called stone fruit, which is simply any fruit with a large stone or pit inside, such as a peach or nectarine. In addition, 90% of the food we distribute is donated to us through our agricultural community, retail store growers, and community food drives. So that can tree collection you're so competitive about, Mr. Powers? It's very important. A record number of over 100,000 cans were collected last year during the drive. That kind of support is instrumental to our mission.
We're still demanding a recount from last year's award.
You can do more trees this year. Lastly, Food Share is resolute in operating in a fiscally responsible manner in order to feed as many people as possible. 92 cents of every dollar donated goes towards providing food to those in need. But while we reach those 75 food insecure friends every month, we know there's another 15,000 people every month who still need our help. Programs like CalFresh are imperative as they provide a significant source of supplemental food, but there's still more work to be done. I'm going to pass this back to Melissa now to talk further about our continued collaboration with important stakeholders, such as yourselves in the County of Ventura. We appreciate your continued support, and it's been an honor to talk to you today.
Thank you, Monica. It's Hunger Awareness Month. It's a call to action. If Bonnie Weigel was here, this is the message she would send you. It's not okay that almost 50 million Americans are food insecure. It's not okay that the federal government spends over $100 million in federal assistance each year to fight hunger, and there are people in our community and across the nation who are still hungry and food insecure. It is not okay that 1 in 6 in our community are food insecure and hungry in Ventura County. And it's certainly not okay that 1 in 5 of those are children in our community. It's not okay that children go to bed hungry at night. It's not okay. It's not okay that children go to school hungry, which impacts their ability to learn, develop, and grow. It's not okay that every day 50 million Americans across our nation have to make a choice. They have to make a choice between quantity and quality. And often the choice isn't quality because there aren't sufficient fresh fruits and vegetables available. In turn, the choice is often quantity, and that quantity is processed foods, foods that do not have healthy, nutritious value. And what that lends to is health issues, medical issues in the future. It's not okay that at least 75,000 people each month are served in our community who are hungry. And it's not okay that there's a gap, as Monica mentioned, of at least 15,000 more that we have not even reached out and touched. It's not okay, but what is okay is your board, our CEO, our community recognizes the significance of this issue, and they have all stepped up. And it's with great pride that I get to recognize those contributions this morning, not only as a county employee, in my pride in the work that we do, and not only addressing hunger in our community, but as addressed earlier this morning, the basis and root causes of poverty. So I'd like to first thank your board for your continued commitment and advocacy to supporting food awareness, food insecurity in our communities. Each and every one of you has played an active role over the years, and we very much appreciate your involvement in food share activities and community activities addressing hunger awareness, advocacy, and education, and the elimination of hunger in our community. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the Human Service Agency and my boss and the director, Barry Zimmerman, for his leadership in partnering with Food Share in a collaborative outreach grant for CalFresh. And through that outreach grant, we've also partnered with other community partners, the likes of Clinicus, My Cup, and Community Action. And through that collaborative process, we have become recognized in the state of California as one of the most high-performing CalFresh programs. And I applaud the team that's been involved in supporting that, the leadership through Barry Zimmerman, Curtis Updike, who managed that contract, and all of the HSA team and partners who have made that a success. I'd like to recognize the Healthcare Agency. I think we've got Barry Fisher here today and Rigo Vargas here today, both of which who have been huge advocates for food and nutrition awareness in partnership with the Food Share. I'd like to also recognize AAA, Victoria Jump, for the senior nutrition programs and the collaborations with Food Share. What isn't also okay is that the fastest growing number of people in our community who are hungry are seniors. I'd also like to recognize the Probation Agency for its partnership with AAA for the community gardens that sit adjacent to Food Share. Thank you to Mark Varela and his team for their support. I'd like to also provide a thank you to Library Services, to Jackie Griffin and her team. And something that you may not be aware of, but that Jackie has had a passion for a long time through her innovation and creativity. She sees the value of bringing families together around the table and sharing food and breaking bread and having conversations and strengthening the family unit. And we're excited about the opportunity to work with Jackie and her team to make that a reality in our community. And of course, thank you to Henry Gonzalez, our Ag Commissioner, for his leadership and support and engagement of our local growers. 60% of the produce that 60% of the food that we deliver in our community is fresh produce, locally grown in Ventura County. I'd like to thank our county employees who have stepped up over the years in canned drives, our Spring Into Action drive and our Tackling Hunger drive, as well as their participation in volunteers. And I'd like to call out this morning, I won't embarrass him, but I probably will, our Auditor Controller, Jeff Berg, who recently hooked up with Food Share and sorted cans. And so we thank you for your support. You, like many other county employees who I won't be possibly able to recognize today, have done that over and over again over the years, and we really appreciate and respect your commitment to feeding the hungry in our community. And of course, to our CEO, Mike Powers, whose commitment to each and every department head who's connected to Food Share, support and advocacy of programs and services, to his connectivity to the community. And of course, we can't forget his competitive nature to be involved in our Tackling Hunger Can Drive, his leadership there. And what you may not know is he has been named the co-chair of the Tackling Hunger Can Tree Drive that will be kicking off in early October of this year. So we look forward to Mike's leadership there, and we thank you and much appreciate your advocacy. And then in general, our community partners wide and vast, and the support and the support that they have for our mission, and specifically our Ventura County Together. Ventura County Together through the leadership of VCCF, through Interface, and through United Way have brought a large number of nonprofits and county government partners to the table to address the most basic needs in our community of food, shelter, and health care. And lastly, many who are in this room today, I want to thank the volunteers of FoodShare, the staff at FoodShare, the board of directors at FoodShare, all of our community partners, our stakeholders and donors who are dedicated to the mission. We very much appreciate that. So in general, a very heartfelt thank you for your collective impact and engagement, because only together can we solve hunger in our community. We have for each of you a poster, and on that poster it represents each of your districts and all of the pantry programs and programs that are supported in each of your collective districts. We also have a poster specifically for our Ag Commissioner recognizing the local growers, and we have one for Mr. Powers recognizing the county's contribution to serving hunger in our community.
Thank you very much. You have one other aspect of your presentation, correct? You still have the...
We're done.
Is that it? What's that? You're complete? Okay, great. All right, thank you. We have, to round out this presentation on Hunger Awareness Month, we also have Katie Rowe from our WIC, that's Women's, Infants, and Children's Program. And Katie, would you come down and present some of the fine things being done with regards to nutrition with the Women's, Infants, and Children's Program?
Good morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board, and Mr. Powers. My name's Katie Rowe. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm the manager for the Ventura County Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Program. I'm sure you're familiar with our acronym, the WIC program. So I'm honored to be here today to help with the celebration of Hunger Action Month and to provide you some information about the WIC program and how WIC addresses hunger in our county. The WIC program turned 40 years this year. So it started in 1974, and it's been going all along. And our Ventura County WIC program was one of the first ones to start when WIC was just a pilot program. WIC serves low-income women, pregnant women, women who have just had a baby, and their infants and children up to age 5. WIC gives families vouchers for purchasing healthy foods. We give foods like milk, eggs, beans, peanut butter, iron-fortified cereals, whole grains and bread, and fruit and vegetables. But not only that, WIC teaches families about health and nutrition, and we promote breastfeeding because we know that's the best way to feed a baby. So not only does WIC address hunger, we also promote healthy eating habits and knowledge that can last a lifetime. And WIC makes a difference. Participation on WIC leads to lower rates of premature birth and also prevents iron deficiency anemia. 27,000 people in Ventura County are enrolled in the WIC program. But listen to this, 17,000 of those people are children under age 5. That's 30% of the children who live in Ventura County. 1 out of 3 children in our community are enrolled on the WIC program.
Wow.
Just think what a difference that makes. That thousands of children who are at risk for going hungry are supported with foods provided by the WIC program.
It's a huge number. 1/3. Wow.
So the WIC program is very, very proud to be a partner with all of these good food programs in providing food assistance and helping people in need in our community. Thanks for your support for the WIC program.
Thank you very much. I think it's good for us to get WIC on the radar screen for people to be aware of how much is being done by the program. We have Barry Zimmerman also to present on our CalFresh program. And stay close. Stay close. We're going to want you for a resolution and a picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bennett. Good morning. Barry Zimmerman from the Human Services Agency, and I just make a few comments. You're well aware that the county runs the CalFresh program, which is the safety net program for for those that need assistance with food. But oftentimes we talk about a safety net, and we are a safety net program, but we can't do it alone. That we need to have many community partners and support to actually meet all the needs that are in the community. And so it's been a great partnership that we've had, in particular with Food Share, over the last years to learn how to come together to meet needs and gaps that we can't fulfill, that they have, and vice versa, that we can strengthen the system throughout. So I do have an illustration kind of how the system works, because oftentimes we don't talk how the system's integrated and work, that I thought shows well how our community partners work together, how we identify needs and serve the community as a whole. A few months ago, Food Share received a referral from 211 about a client, and this is a story I got from a worker who was in dire need of food. The caller was a homebound individual due to medical conditions. They were in desperate need for help because they had nothing in their cupboards. A Food Share representative had an emergency food box delivered to the home and asked if she was receiving any assistance, such as CowWorks or CowFresh. The answer was no, and she did not know how to get them. Food Share called the Human Services Agency, and I would say prior to this relationship, we probably wouldn't have had this close contact and the ability to refer back and forth seamlessly like we do today. And we're hoping to strengthen that. Food Share called the Human Services Agency to arrange an in-home assisted application process. So an HSA worker went to the home to help the individual. Representative visited the home that afternoon just after the client received the box from Food Share, helped her apply for CowFresh as well as Medi-Cal disability benefits that they were entitled to connect them with health care that would help remedy the situation that caused the person to be homebound. This client also received a list of other resources in the community, such as that are listed here, that could also help augment the services for that individual. So I thought that was a great illustration that had multiple systems and multiple partners that we work together with, that in multiple venues that say we're all in this together to help facilitate the needs of the community.
Could you share for us just what's the scope of CalFresh's contact with Ventura County residents? How big is it?
Right now we have
quick as 1/3 of all these.
Right now 73,000 individuals do receive some kind of assistance through CalFresh at this point in time. And that pace has, since 2008, has been a double-digit increase year over year. We would hope that as we see some signs of turnaround in the economy, that will level off, and we're very sensitive to that, but it is a high need right now.
Well, thank you both for being here today. Melissa, Susan, and Monica, thank you for being here to represent Food Share and kicking off this Hunger Awareness Month. It's a topic that we'll want to talk about throughout the month of September here in county government. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I have resolutions for Food Share, resolutions for the county service programs also. We'd like to have a picture taken, and particularly all these great Food Share volunteers that you've had come in, we'd like to have them into this picture. So if you guys could come on down in front here, everybody with the balloons and you guys, and we'll go down here for presentation of these resolutions.
Up the balloons. Great.
Right. You read them without.
These two are the same. These
Sure.
Block out the board members. Why don't you come on down for a moment? And then if you guys will all turn your shoulders and try to come close together, we want to just have one throw on this. I actually think, move forward towards this podium and we'll kind of curve it up there. All right.
actually, and scoot over just a little bit, we're going to put you guys right in front here. Yeah, all right. And Barry and WIC representative, come on over here, our WIC representative.
Henry.
Come on down, Henry. There you go. This doesn't work. So you all come, start here and go this way. Barry, come forward, please, right? You go that way to where she is, right? Move on over. There you go, right? Mr. Powers, you can take the middle. Right? You're tall enough, right? Come on in there. Right? Try to get it so you can see the camera. All right, here we go. All right. Let's see. This one is for you guys. This is for you, Barry.
No, board member.
Here we go. So you want to get board members in here too? There you go. All right. Great. All right. That's right. You to turn your shoulder sideways. There we go. All right. One way or the other. There we go. All right. And yeah.
At the clock. Let's look at the clock.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I know you're involved, but.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Make sure you hear that on the way. Have my staff follow up with you to get that information from you for those who see the community later.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
How you doing?
You got
back in the system. Thank you.
schools the literacy level of his or her parents. This is the 30th anniversary of California Library Literacy Services and 30th anniversary of Ventura County Library's READ Adult Literacy Program. Volunteers are the backbone of the READ program, one-to-one tutoring services. Volunteering of one's time and resources is a fundamental part of our county's democratic tradition and is essential to its spirit, whereas the READ Adult Literacy Program is not simply a service, but a life-changing process. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby extends sincere congratulations both to the Ventura County Library READ Adult Literacy Program and the California Library Literacy Services on their 30th anniversary, and offers best wishes for many, many more years of dedicated service. So we hope people listening to that who have an interest might consider volunteering to help with the literacy program. And while I bring this down, I'd like to invite you to make any comments you'd like to make at this 30th anniversary moment.
Mr. Powers, member of the board. I'm Carol Chapman, the program manager of Ventura County Library's READ Adult Literacy Program. And for 30 years, we have been changing lives, helping people improve their reading skills so that they can improve their situation and get off programs like Food Share. And they work very diligently. 19 years ago, I was here. I remember coming several years in a row to beg for funding to continue for this program. And it's because of the forward thinking of this board that has funded us that in the last recession and multiple recessions, we have been able to continue, whereas many other programs in the state have closed their doors when times were tough. So I am truly appreciative of the fact that you have had that frame of mind for this program. I'm very proud of our tutors. They are very devoted to their learners, dedicated. I'm very proud of our learners who work so hard and so deliberately to improve their situation. And I'm very proud of our staff, who is very dedicated and very knowledgeable about what they do. I'm also very excited about this weekend when we have our 30th anniversary celebration down at Foster Library and next weekend out in Simi Valley. I've brought a flyer for each of you, and we've invited every literacy program in the county to be there to participate with us so that all of your districts should be receiving new tutors, we hope, and new learners. And it's going to be fun. I'd encourage everybody to come down and join us. We've got a banjo band there to entertain us, a food truck, and Paws Reading Dogs, and Friends of the Library book sale. But most important, we've got all the literacy programs who are going to be explaining what we do and trying to get people up to their next level. So, thank you. This weekend, it is from noon to 4 at the E.P. Foster Library in downtown Ventura. Next Saturday, it is from 11 to 3 at the Simi Valley Library.
Thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you. Appreciate that. Here you go. Hold that up and look at that camera. There we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your efforts.
Yeah, it is. It is. 30 years of good work.
Okay. We now have a presentation. There we go. Pass that out. That's for me. There you go. This is a presentation of a resolution proclaiming September 2014 as Recovery Month. And Melanie Roy, would you please come on down, Melanie? Whoop. Melanie, what big teeth you have.
Sadly, Melanie was taken sick, so with your patience, I'll be speaking on her behalf. Patrick Zarate, Behavioral Health Department. And good morning to you, Chair Bennett, and to members of the board, Mr. Powers. I very much appreciate the opportunity to take a few moments to talk about this year's Recovery Month conference. Most every American is aware of the devastating effects of alcohol and other drug problems. In fact, virtually every person has a family member, a coworker, or a close friend who's been directly affected by those effects, by that problem. Abuse and addiction create burdens at the individual, family, and community level, with collateral costs that are impossible to ignore. Yet there is a very positive story about addiction right in front of us every single day. More than 23 million Americans, that is more than 1 in 10 adults in this country, come out the other side of addiction to live substance-free, healthy, and productive lives. These are the anonymous people of recovery. Over the last 8 years, our annual Recovery Month conferences have been focused on the science of addiction. But this year, our program choice was to bring forward the science of recovery, to bring forward for our community a recognition, an understanding, and even a celebration of recovery. I know from this proclamation that you share my hope for this year's conference to strengthen and inspire the community, its many providers, and our allied partners in the understanding that treatment does work and recovery is possible. And again, with your patience, I'd like to ask Janice Gardner to make a few comments. She's our Vice Chair for the Behavioral Health Advisory Board.
Good morning, Ms. Gardner.
Good morning. Janice Gardner, Behavioral Health Advisory Board. Good morning, Chairman Bennett, our CEO, Mike Powers, and members of the board. There are over 114,000 recovery groups across in the world, and their members are in the hundreds of thousands. Over 5% of these members are teenagers under the age of 21 who have had substance abuse issues and are already turning their lives around. Addiction is a chronic and persistent disorder that has no cure, but it does have a solution, and that solution is a sober and recovering lifestyle. The more we know about what makes this possible, the richer our programs become, and this is a mission of ours in Ventura County and with the alcohol and drug programs. Like any debilitating disease, the best chance for remission is fostering well-being and recovery in the individual as a whole. Tomorrow morning, we hope that in addition to the caregivers and professionals who will be in attendance at the Choosing Everyday Recovery Summit, we hope that others that have chosen the sober lifestyle will be there to celebrate with us. We're thankful to the Board of Supervisors for adopting this resolution and for proclaiming September 2014 Recovery Month. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. I'll bring this resolution down.
And while you're coming down, we do have some of our providers and supporters here, including the chair of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, Dave Humbo, and the president of the local chapter of NAMI, Patan Patan.
Oh, we have them come down for the picture
Sure.
also.
Thank you.
Mike, can I just make a quick comment? Yes. I would just like to thank the board for pushing us to integrate the alcohol drug programs with the behavioral health department in terms of having an integrated board, and I think it's gone very smoothly. So thank you for that support.
I would like to make one point while you're still in the room, and that is that if you take the problems that we have in this society, how many of them trace back to addiction and addiction problems. And you guys are a small but very critical department to kind of keep alive that message that we have to keep dealing with this issue of addiction and recovery. And so we really appreciate the steady efforts that are going on out there, and appreciate your leadership and everybody else's leadership to try to make that happen. It's crucial to the crime problem in this country, crucial to some of the foster care issues that we have, crucial to the economic problems that people have. So thank you very much for being there for all of those. Sure, family stability, as Supervisor Long just said. All right, what was that? Supervisor Parks.
I was just going to comment on Mr. Hombo's comment that it is nice to have the combination of the two boards together, the old Alcohol and Drug Advisory Board and the Mental Health Board putting together in the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. And we find that so many people have both problems, both with a mental illness and then also an addiction problem. So it's great that we can look at it and help those people. They say something like as much as 70% of those with mental illness also have a co-occurring drug problem too, or alcohol problem. So it's nice to be able to look at that in whole. And I really appreciate the conference coming up. I'm sure it's going to be a great conference, and helping people who have addiction problems to become more aware of what's out there and what's available to them and what we can do to help them. Thank you.
And it's nice to have the staff here today from Alcohol and Drug Services. Their passion, enthusiasm, and creativity really make a huge difference for us. So thank you. Extraordinary.
Great. We'll go to our next item, item 30, and this is a receive and file presentation from the Veterans Home, and we're really fortunate and like to welcome Jean Bonfilio, Public Information Officer of California Department of Veterans Affairs, and Michelle Ralston, Administrator of the California Department of Veterans Affairs, Veterans Homes of California. Looks like just one of you are here.
Yes, good morning, Chair Bennett and Mr. Powers. My name is Jeannie Bonfilio, and I'm the Public Information Officer representing the California Department of Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Home of California in Ventura. And I would like to send my greetings from our Administrator, Michelle Ralston, who regrets she could not be here today, but would like to invite any of you that have not been to the Veterans Home in Ventura, and I believe most of you, if not all of you, have, but if you haven't had a chance to make it down there yet, we would love to have you come and take a tour when it's convenient for you. And we'd also like to thank every veteran who has, man and woman who has served our country. We'd like to give them our thanks and our praise. We feel every veteran is a national treasure. And there are approximately 65,000 veterans who reside in Ventura County. And we know that Ventura has a real heart for veterans and supports the veterans in many ways. And we'd just like to thank the community for supporting our veterans and our Veterans Home of California in Ventura. It's located at 10900 Telephone Road, and it is an assisted living facility for veterans, and they can also apply for residency there with a spouse. A lot of veterans aren't aware of that. We'd also like to say that, the California Department of Veterans Affairs is also known as CalVet, and CalVet is not just a great home loan for veterans. A lot of people think it's a great home loan, which it is, but it's an entire California Department of Veterans Affairs where their veterans have state benefits and federal benefits as a California resident. And in addition to the Veterans Home of California in Ventura, there are a total of 8 veterans homes in the state. I've given you some information today, all the way from the Yountville site, which has been there for over 100 years, to down in Chula Vista, San Diego County. We have one in Barstow, West Los Angeles, Lancaster, and 2 new homes, one in Fresno and Redding that just opened this year. So if there happens to be maybe a veteran in the Ventura or Oxnard area who may need assisted living, but their family lives in another part of the state, we want to make sure that the veteran can be near their loved ones, their friends, their family, and we help them get into a veterans home that they will be very happy living at, and where they have support of friends and family. So that's also in your package. And we'd also like to let everyone know that we are currently hiring veterans across the state of California for the California Department of Veterans Affairs, and we're doing a lot to employ veterans by giving them extra points on state exams, and also if they take a state exam, veterans take a state exam, and they pass by 70% or higher, they're immediately put into the first rank. So we're doing everything we can to employ veterans who bring so many skills to their employment. We encourage other employing agencies to really consider hiring veterans for the great skills that they bring to their employment. We also have a women veterans program at the state of California, Department of Veterans Affairs, and a lot of benefits and services that veterans may not be aware of. So we just encourage veterans to go to the CalVet website, which is CalVet, one word, CalVet.ca.gov, and check out all the benefits and services that the state of California provides to veterans and their families. That is our goal, to serve veterans who have served our country so bravely. And we also help family members with anything that they may need. And if anyone would like to come and visit the Veterans Home of California in Ventura, to please give us a call. It's 805-659-7500. I've also left my business card with all of you today. If there's a veteran in need of anything, no matter what it happens to be, we will help them, whether we need to help refer them to the VA for services or provide services through the state of California. We will leave no stone unturned to assist a veteran with whatever they happen to need. Like we say at the State of California Department of Veterans Affairs, every day is Veterans Day. So we thank you all for your support of our veterans, and once again invite you to come down to the Veterans Home for a tour if you haven't been there yet. And I just thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here today representing the California Department of Veterans Affairs.
Well, thank you for taking the time to fill us in and give us an update after the construction in 2010. For people that haven't been out to that home, if the veterans are as satisfied in the other homes as they are at the one in Ventura, then veterans certainly are benefiting a great deal from these 8 homes that we have in the state of California. But it's a great program for these veterans, and the sense of security that they have and belonging to sort of an extended family right there at the facility is just great. So thank you very much for giving us an update.
Thank you so much for your support as well,
Yeah,
Mr. Bennett. Thank you.
I'd like to have a...
Thank you all.
So I'll move the item to receive and file. And moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. And we're on to item 31. Supervisor Zaragoza.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to call Dave Smith from United Way. We have a resolution by the board, from the Board of Supervisors of Ventura County in recognition of 69th anniversary of Live United. And I'd like to read just a couple of paragraphs here, and then I'll let Dave say a couple of words. Whereas Ventura County Board of Supervisors has declared September as Live United Month, whereas Live United Month is intended to highlight for Ventura County residents the various programs and services provided by United Way of Ventura County that are designed to advance a common good in our community. And whereas United Way of Ventura County started at the War Chest in 1945, it has been an integral part or supporter of health and human services in our community for the last 68 years. United Way of Ventura County is focused on improving education, financial stability, promoting healthy lives, and successes in the future to be measured through the results that deliver positive community impact for the County of Ventura. Whereas United Way of Ventura County is committed to providing and support community impact partnerships, delivering results in critical programs, which include 211 of Ventura County, the volunteerventuracounty.org, the Ventura Income Tax Assistance Program, the United Women's Leadership Council and Young Leaders Society, and Children's Oral Health Collaborative, and the Latino Team programs. And whereas United Way of Ventura County has evolved over 69 years, from the War Chest of Ventura County to the United Fund to the United Way of Ventura County, always with the purpose of improving the lives and mobilizing the caring power of our communities. Now therefore be resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors designates the month of September from this date forward to be Live United Month in Ventura County. And be further resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors reaffirms its recognition of the social services needs of Ventura County residents and applauds United Way of Ventura County for the multiple ways the organization has responded to those needs of every day of the year, and it has done for the last 69 years. And this is presented to you, Dave, and United Way on the 9th day of this month. You want to share a couple of words? And by the way, Dave's going to say a couple of words, and he's going to be retiring here at the end of the year, and we're really going to miss you, Dave. And I know you have some of the board members and staff here with you, but it's going to be my honor to present this to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a lot of whereases. Good morning, Mr. Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers. First, let me just say thanks very much for this proclamation, Live United Month in Ventura County. It means a great deal to the organization to receive this recognition, and I think it points out the various ways that United Way touches the community through its partnership and relationship and collaboration with many other organizations in the community, some of which have been recognized here this morning, such as Ventura County Together, Food Share, county's public health department, behavioral health, and so forth. So this recognition is important to us. We have a couple of big Live United Month events coming up. Saturday, September 27th is our 25th annual Day of Caring, where we'll have just shy of 1,000 volunteers out around the county working on various service projects that make a real difference. If you don't know, you should be aware that Day of Caring is an activity that many United Way organizations hold annually around the country. There are 1,200 United Way organizations today, and the Day of Caring in Ventura County was the first United Way Day of Caring ever established 25 years ago, so we're proud of that. And Thursday, September 18th, a week from this Thursday, is our annual Spirit of Community Partnership Recognition Luncheon being held at the Sarah Center in Camarillo. There will be approximately 400 people or so in attendance, and several important awards being presented to recognize the very best of the very best in the community. One of those awards is the Roy Pinkerton Award, which goes to the top corporate citizen that has supported United Way during the past year and years before that. And this year, the recognition of that award is going to the County of Ventura. I don't make these things up. And I'd like to give a special recognition. Oh, he's right here. Mark Varela, who's the head of the county campaign for getting ready for year number 4, right, Mark? So we really appreciate Mark's support. And this past year, the county's campaign was in excess of $130,000 from county employees to the United Way campaign, making a real difference in the community. So thank you to the County of Ventura and the many employees who support the United Way effort. A few people I'd like to introduce today here from our team. Susan Walker, Director of Investor Relations. Gia Merrill, a member of Susan's team. Letitia Austin, who's our Director of Communications and Marketing. And one of our partners, great partners, Tanya Kellen, who's the Executive Director of 211 Ventura County, which we talk about United Way's 69 years in the community. It'll be 70 years next year. 10 of those years will be 211 next year. It'll be our 10th anniversary. Hard to believe. Time flies by. And Matt Carroll was here earlier. I think he had to leave for another appointment. Matt is a member of our board of directors, and I'd like to thank those of you who have served on United Way's board during the time that I've been with the organization. Supervisor Zaragoza, Supervisor Long, Supervisor Parks, Mr. Powers have all been representatives on the United Way board, and much appreciate that. And one final note, as Supervisor Zaragoza mentioned, I am retiring, you plan so much, retiring in about 6 weeks or so, give or take a few days. And really appreciate the great support that you have given me personally and the United Way organization in the 13 years or so that I've been part of the United Way effort in the community. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much.
We look forward to having you back before you leave us.
What was that?
We look forward to having you back before you leave us.
Yeah.
Mr. Board members, one of the things that I'm going to miss from Dave is that he was my partner in running the 5K Ascent to the Sea.
Not this year, John.
And I beat you by 1 second, but Susan, well,
Yeah, whatever. Let's not go there.
my competitor.
Yeah.
Come on, Peter.
Oh.
And before you all leave, Mr. Powers has a couple of comments.
We're going to really miss you.
Great, thanks, John.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Just a quick comment, Dave. Thank you for coming and all your United Way team there. And to Mark, in terms of getting this award, this is a great reflection, I think, on the county family here, the generous spirit. There was over 1,100 county employees who contributed. So I think that speaks to that partnership you're talking about and the importance of the work that you're doing. So thank you very much. And I do remember that race between you and Supervisor Zergo, so there were some elbows thrown. That's all I'm going to say.
He didn't really beat me.
But he's not bitter.
I learned a long time ago, you never beat your boss at anything.
There you go. I like that idea.
Is that 1 second? That's what.
Supervisor Long.
Thank you.
Dave, I know there'll be another time, but thank you for your outstanding work with United Way. I was on the team that helped to hire you, and the projects and the product you've brought to United Way has just really strengthened both its impact on the county, but it's also its image and its engagement with the community. And it's been really a lot of your vision and great heart for it, and for a newspaper man that sang a lot.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Thank you so much.
And Mark, thank you so much, Mark, for the good work too. Thank you.
Good day for the county. The U.S. News and Report #1, and then the corporate award for United Way. That's great. All righty. We have.
I'm sure that will be headline news tomorrow.
We have one final. We have one final resolution here. That's our 10:30 item. That's also we're still running behind, and that is item 32, presentation of a resolution proclaiming September 9th as National Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day in Ventura County. And Solita Dabrowski is the program coordinator of Ventura County Public Health. Solita, I'm going to have you go ahead and fill us in and your comments, and I'll bring this resolution down when you're finished.
Thank you.
Thank
Good morning.
you for being here today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers. On behalf of the Perinatal Substance Use Task Force, I want to thank you for acknowledging today, September 9th, as being FASD Awareness Day. The goal of the Perinatal Substance Use Task Force is to ensure that all women in our county are screened for substance use during pregnancy and educated about the impact that it has on their baby. As you may know, FASD is the leading cause of brain damage in children. In our county, at least 15.4% of women indicate drinking alcohol in the month before they know they're pregnant, and at least 50% of those continue to drink, even though they know that they're pregnant. Our numbers are not changing very much. If anything, they are increasing. At this time, we are only screening about 20% of pregnant women in Ventura County. We're missing a large portion of those women that are more likely to drink during pregnancy. So that's why the Perinatal Substance Use Task Force is partnering with the Perinatal Advisory Council in providing a training in October for physicians, nurses, and clinic staff, concentrating on the importance of screening all women for substance use, including alcohol. So again, I just want to thank you for your acknowledgement and your support in ensuring that we can have a county that is free from substance exposure for these young infants.
critical program for these kids. In our foster program, when we have our drug-addicted babies, it is heartbreaking every time you see them.
Yes.
So thank you very much for being here today, helping us get some more publicity out for that. Supervisor Long has some comments she'd like to
Well,
make.
just thank you. And for many, many years, you've worked on this in the task force, and now what we have as a board made a part of our programs and policies. And unfortunately, the private sector, we have to get to the physicians to get them to use this very easy screening tool.
Yes.
And it really is very easy,
Yes.
and it's just a matter of educating. And so I appreciate hearing that you're going to have a outreach and a forum to try and make inroads there. And I think anywhere we can, as we're out in the community talking, that's important to do. There's clear and convincing evidence that fetal alcohol syndrome has lifelong
Right.
impacts to young babies.
Yes,
So
it
thank
does.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Okay, item 33 is receive and file a status report on the funding of the CEQA analysis for the Satakoy area plan update. Interesting community, interesting update, I'm sure.
Yes.
Here it is, Brian.
Good morning, Chairman Bennett, Mr. Powers, members of the board. My name is Rosemary Rowan. I manage the long-range planning section for the Planning Division, and as stated previously, I'm here to provide a status report on our update to the Satakoy area plan. That plan was initiated in April of 2010 when 3 landowners came before your board with requests for pre-screening on privately initiated amendments. At that time, your board asked us to take a broader look at this community and the land use within it, and to concurrently process an area plan update along with the privately initiated amendments. You also asked us to look for grants and to, if necessary, return to your board with budget adjustments or grant applications. Since that time, we did apply for and receive 2 grants, and those were allocated to do a 2-phased project. The first phase focused on a part of the community called Old Town Satakoy, and that project was funded by a grant from the Southern California Association of Governments. We finished that work last year. Phase 2 is actually a comprehensive area plan update, and it's being partially funded through a grant from the state's Strategic Growth Council. On March 6, we took the key components of that plan to the Ventura County Planning Commission. The commission selected a preferred plan on March 6th, and that plan focuses on economic revitalization, public health, and new opportunities for affordable housing. Unfortunately, neither of our grants covers or fully covers the CEQA analysis that we have to conduct for this project. We've already conducted part of that analysis called the initial study, and what that analysis showed is that we need to prepare what's called a focused environmental impact report. We identified 7 issues that need to be studied within that EIR. In order to minimize costs, we're incorporating a number of strategies to keep costs down. One of the main ways is that we're going to produce the environmental impact report in-house using existing staff. Those staff resources were made available when your board elected to postpone 2 housing element programs last spring because of a pending decision on related legal issues at the California Supreme Court level. So those previously budgeted costs for those programs have been redirected to help fill this funding gap for the CEQA documentation. We've done a cost analysis for the CEQA requirements, and they total about $407,000. And we've also identified 3 anticipated funding sources. We have an agreement from the 3 landowners to contribute $120,000. We can use grant funding for what's called technical studies that support the environmental analysis, but we do have a gap of about $150,000 that will be met through the county's contribution. However, that contribution does not require a budget adjustment at this time because those costs were included as part of this year's adopted budget for the Planning Division. We would like to note, however, that the reallocation of staff to this project essentially leaves us without additional staff available should we need to apply for grants, or if we get privately initiated amendments in, we have to process those for our board pre-screenings. And also, if the board would elect to reinitiate the housing element programs. We did check on the Supreme Court situation, and nothing has changed, so there's no reason to assume that that is imminent. But should one of those things happen, we would work with the CEO's office on a mid-year budget adjustment.
They say 3.
Our CEQA timeline is 12 months. We started last May, and we really need to complete by next May in order to meet our grant-mandated project deadline of October of next year. So our recommendation today is simply that your board receive and file this status report on the Saticoy Area Plan update. Thank you, and we're here if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Supervisor Parks.
There's 3 applicants. I don't recall what their projects were.
Their projects, they currently have vacant land that is designated for fairly low density housing, and they came before the board to request a change to either industrial or commercial use. And their requests have been incorporated into the project that was the preferred alternative that was elected by the Planning Commission last March.
Did this also go before LAFCO when the discussion was whether it should be rezoned or not and the need for housing?
No, this is not.
Okay, that might have been
as far as I know, a
project.
LAFCO issue. That's a different project actually being processed by the city of Ventura.
Right. And I know water's an issue too. Is there?
That's correct.
Area?
We have continuously been working with the city to try to resolve that issue.
So usually applicants have to fund their own EIRs, right? And in this case, the 3 different applicants are contributing. Was it like $125,000?
$120,000. That's correct.
The 3 of them, not each, right?
Exactly.
And the entire project's $400,000 or so.
The entire environmental documentation, yes, our cost estimates are around $407,000. That does include the technical studies that are being paid for by the grant as well.
Are we benefiting the applicants by funding it with government funds, their EIR?
Well, to some degree, yes. But on the other hand, what we're funding and the environmental documentation is for the entire area plan update. So we really looked at this and tried to identify what would be considered to be a fair contribution because their property does not include all of the changes that are being proposed as part of this area plan update.
Yes, certainly. I was just thinking if they had to do an EIR, either any individual property owner there, that would be a pretty expensive thing and probably exceed this. So I was just wondering.
We did point that out to them, Supervisor.
I want to make sure that we're paying for what the area plan costs. They're paying for their project costs. And you think that's the case here?
We believe that we've come fairly close. It's rather difficult to predict and to determine all the costs, especially when you include all the grant funds that we've received. But this is the agreement we were able to come to with the 3 landowners, and it's the proposition we have before the board today.
Any other questions from staff? All right.
I got to follow up a little bit on that. So when you say these 3, and we're talking about the whole area, their 3 parcels, how much does that encompass of the whole area? Do you have an idea?
I don't have an exact percentage, but I believe the acreage is 8 acres.
Of the 3 or the total?
The total. The total acres for the 3 landowners. Again, it's a complicated situation because we're not proposing change throughout the entire area plan. Their benefit will be to get, however, some development that's much more realistic than their current land use designation, which does justify their need to make a contribution to the project.
So they're the ones out of this whole thing that's going to get the greatest reward.
Well, they certainly are going to get a benefit, yes. Whether it's the greatest benefit, I can't answer that.
Because the rest of it, you're not going to do a lot. I guess I'm just trying to be, it's just trying to figure out, most people go down the project, they know they have something, they pay the cost to do it. Because if you didn't do this, what would they be doing right now?
Well, they would need to process their own general plan amendment, independent of the rest of the community, yes.
Right?
And I think that ultimately it would be fair to say that everyone is benefiting, because I think a number of the changes that we're bringing forward, funded through the grant process, are going to benefit not just the landowners, but the broader community.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to hear. So there's other things for us besides just the landowners, a lot of other things that are coming out of this.
Absolutely, yes.
So there's a reason why we may say we want to go along.
I believe that's true.
Okay. That's all I wanted to hear.
Okay.
Also, I was just wondering, are we somewhat tying ourselves to supporting the outcome? And that would be, could we be liable if this board doesn't approve the CEQA document, for example? We find it inadequate, that they've put money into it, and then it doesn't pass, or the zone change, is that something that if they don't get the zone change, I'm just wondering if we're setting up some expectations and binding us a little bit towards those.
Well, generally speaking, whenever a landowner, whether they process their general plan amendment through the county or they process it individually, it's a risk for them. There's never a guarantee that their project will be approved. I think it would be fair to say, however, that the proposed land use that these landowners made back in 2010 ended up being fairly consistent with the broader vision that we had for the community. So there wasn't a lot of push and pull or conflict between the 2 goals, their individual goals as private landowners and the broader vision that we've established for the Saticoy area plan.
And when I don't know if the agreement has been signed with them, but maybe that's some language that could be put in the agreement to make sure that it doesn't guarantee any changes, and I don't know.
I'm going to let Shelley Sussman, who's the project manager, respond to that, because I do believe we have a signed agreement.
Okay.
Shelley Sussman, project manager for the Saticoy Area Plan Update. Yes, we do have signed agreements with each of them individually, and we worked very closely with County Council to make sure that the agreements included the provision that you're alluding to, which is that there's no guarantee that that the project itself will be approved by the board.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I would also like to address another question, which is that when they do come in with projects, when they do, they'll be able to tier off of the environmental analysis that we're completing for the entire area plan update. But it could be that they would have to do additional analysis, for example, a traffic analysis that was specific to their development that comes in at that point in time. So it's not that we're doing the entire EIR analysis for them, but they will be able to use, I presume, and that's the intent, some of the information that we're providing.
So they're going to get a lot of value for what they're putting in.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be able to get some value. How much that would equate to,
Sure.
I'm not sure
Okay.
that's calculable.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Just a couple of quick questions in terms of overview. Number one, does the county from time to time pay for area plan developments?
Yes, yes, we do, Supervisor Bennett.
Like,
All area plans. We pay for all the area
exactly.
plans.
We
This is
pay for area
This is a
plan.
publicly initiated area plan amendment with a contribution from the private landowners who essentially were the catalysts at the very beginning of that process.
So normally the county pays for area plan amendments. My understanding, that's why I'm just trying to paint the big picture here in terms of what happened. Then these applicants came in and said they want to make a change, and at the same time staff was saying, gosh, that's what initiated staff to take a look at the Sataquai area plan. And staff was saying we ought to update the Sataquai area plan. We ought to use this opportunity because if they're going to be making some changes, the whole community would benefit if it's consistent with sort of a well-planned area plan rather than just these changes being processed in the area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so based on that, staff then said, instead of us paying all of the costs of the area plan, let's go try to get area plan update. Let's try to, which we could have decided to do on our own. We said, let's try to get some grants and let's try to get some funding. So another way to ask the question would be, how much are we saving from the $450,000? We're getting an area plan update for the Sataquai area for essentially $150,000. Is that correct?
That is correct, and the area plan update costs far in excess of that.
Right.
Most of the costs actually are being supported by the grants, the two grants
Right.
that we obtained.
Okay. All right.
And I would like to note that what we're doing here is similar to how the county updated the Pyro area plan, although that situation was somewhat different. We're not setting a new precedent with this. This is simply a situation where there is a combination of private and public funds being
It's
used.
a legitimate question as to whether we're spending public funds to try to benefit a private developer. Normally, you'd say a private developer should pay for their own EIR. But when it gets combined with an area plan update, it can potentially be a win-win for everybody as part of the process. And that's what's happened here.
That's correct.
Is that right? It's in terms of what staff wanted to do with the Sataquai
Yes.
area. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have any other questions, as we go forward, right? All right. Good. Thank you very much. We've got a motion to receive and file. It's been moved and seconded. That's just a good update, and so that this is not happening, off the radar screen in terms of people, knowing about this and stuff.
And I
Thank you
appreciate
very much.
also the work of staff, but also of county council staff on those one issue. I appreciate it.
Good. All righty, and we have our last 10:30 item that we have in front of us as public hearing proposed on the adjustment to the sewer service charges, Ventura County Water Works. Good morning, Mr. Bacallo.
Good morning.
Still have you here, the celebrity, right? That's a great picture in the
Bennett,
newspaper. I'll tell you.
Members of the board, Mr. Powers, Reddy Pacala with Water and Sanitation Department of the Public Works Agency. This item before you is a public hearing for the proposed sewer rate increase for Ventura County Water Works District Number 1. As you know, district provides sanitation services to the city of Moore Park. District currently operates 5 million gallon treatment plant and also 1.5 million reclamation facility and provides service to more than 9,400 properties in the district service area. We have, to comply with the Proposition 218, we have mailed the notices to all of the properties receiving sewer service 45 days ahead of this scheduled public hearing. And we received a total of 5 protest letters, which have been provided to your board. Our office in the Moore Park office did not receive any telephone calls regarding the proposed sewer rate increase. The 5-member advisory committee appointed by your board has unanimously concurred with the recommended action. We are recommending that you adopt the resolution in our staff report. That concludes my verbal report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Bacallo?
Mr. Chairman, I did not have the opportunity to attend your retirement dinner, whatever it was, or whatever they put together for you. But I just want to thank you for the good work that you've done for the county, and wish you a happy retirement. And there was an excellent article in the paper, so thank you so much for your good work.
Thank you, sir. I'll be here 3 more weeks, so I will still come back and make a few more presentations before I retire.
I understand you're going to be here 2 more weeks, but I might not see you. But I just wanted to share that
okay.
publicly. I want to thank you for your excellent work. And I know you're going to have a good retirement.
I heard that 5,000 copies of the Ventura County Star went to India.
That was a great article.
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all your support. Thank you.
And I'm sure that Mr. Pratt's going to miss you, and I know you have somebody that's going to take your place, but I just personally want to thank you for an excellent job that you've done, and it helped us tremendously.
Mr. Pratt has something he wants to say, and I know the 2 supervisors want to say something also. Go ahead, Mr. Pratt.
Oh, okay.
Before the tears start to flow or anything, it's been remiss of me. By the way, Jeff Pratt with Public Works. I work with Reddy Pakal, of course. There are going to be 3 celebrations of Reddy's career here at the county. None of which have happened yet.
They haven't happened
yet.
The
paper was a little bit early, but at just the right time because Reddy made front page above the fold. He's been living with that ever since. So the 9/23 will be here at your board, recognize you, Reddy. And then on October 1st, out at the Moore Park Yard, there's a big lunch, which Reddy's paying for. So you'll want to make sure, if you can, you get to that one. And on October 2nd, over here at Pacific Conference Room and the lunchroom in the Hall of Justice, you're all invited. Hope you can make that one. That'll be a celebration of Reddy's career, and we hope to do a little bit of a barbecue there too. So hope to see you there.
And he's going to barbecue too.
Are we roasting?
No, roasting. Yeah, it's roasting ready. Yeah. Thank you,
Supervisor Parks.
I didn't have anything to say,
Oh,
but
your
I'll be
light
glad
is
to
on,
chime
so.
in. You got a big smile there, Reddy.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Ready? You go raise people's rates, you only get a few people to comment. You've always done a great job, and I just appreciate all you've done. I know the whole community out there has appreciated what you've done for them. So thank you, and no more of these big, high 20, 30% rate increases. I know this is not any fun anymore, but...
Yeah, this will be my last rate recommendation to your board before I retire. The next few items will be more about some of the projects we are working on.
Then we should really argue about
Yeah.
this.
How could you charge $2 more?
All right. Okay, we will see you back in the boardroom and
Yes, sir.
for a
Couple more
goodbye
times.
and enjoy the last few weeks. Right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate all your support.
Ask Kathleen if she'll take another picture and get a good one.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
All righty. Item 35, CEO's office, Second Amendment to the MOA
These are what we got to argue
with IUOE.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, board members, CEO Mike Powers, Tabine Cosio for County Executive Office. The item we have before you is a recommendation for your board to commence public hearing on the Second Amendment to the MOU between the County of Ventura and IUOE Local 501. A further recommendation for your board to waive the second hearing that's required by your personal rules and regulations. And finally, recommendation for your board to adopt the amendment at the conclusion of today's hearing. The amendment is an amendment to the 3-year contract that is currently in place between the county and IUOE Local 501. The current agreement has a economic or salary benefit increases totaling 6.16%, which are the first round of increases for this group since August of 2009. Yet between August of 2009 and today, the IUOE and its membership assisted the county in mitigating and reducing some of its costs over this time period by agreeing to pay 3% more into the retirement plan and no salary increases for the 2 most recent contracts. Unfortunately, that partnership with them had the result of their salary falling behind market from our competitors. So what this amendment does is it provides increases for those classifications that were found to be significantly behind market. For example, the stationary engineer was found to be 28% behind market from our competitors. The county, how it determined what what job titles would be eligible for the increases. The methodology implemented was called the Total Compensation Market-Based Average, in which we surveyed the 7 southern counties and the surrounding cities. And we looked at total compensation elements such as, obviously, pay, base pay, but annual leave, health benefits, and also employer-paid retirement contributions. Based on that analysis, the County Executive Office is making a recommendation that we provide additional increases beyond the 1% that's currently provided for in the contract. In order to qualify for these increases, a job classification was needed to be found to be 11% or more behind the market. And for those job classifications that are 11% or more behind the market, we will. The goal was to get them to 95% of market, which falls within your board's informal policy of compensation. If the 95% of market, up to $2,000, a fixed dollar amount. If that $2,000 was exceeded, there would be a second figure of 42% of the 95% of market, with a total cap of 9% for any job classification. This process, or this methodology that we implemented or employed for IOE, is the exact same process that we used when we determined the increases for management and SEIU Local 721, which was approved by your board in August prior to your summer recess. So county staff met with IOE and its bargaining team on August 18th to present these findings and to present the additional increases. IOE agreed to these increases, and overall the MBA increases total about 7.2% for the unit as a whole, with the maximum being 9% over the three-phase increase. 189 IOE represented employees will receive an increase. The annual cost, once it's been fully implemented, will be $537,000. Of that net county cost, it will be about $81,000. That's at the final phase of the implementation. And as I said, this will be phased in over 3 increases, the first of which will take place, pending your board adoption, September 28th of this year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? We've had 1 or 2 conversations about this in closed session, so I think we're all pretty informed. Mr. Powers.
Well, thank you, Chair Bennett. Just a comment. We appreciate your board support in helping monitor the market for highly trained individuals. And they're a big, huge asset for the county. So helping us keep an eye on that and support that and protect it is very important. So we appreciate it.
All right. Anything else? We have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote. All right. That passes, and you're on to item 36.
That's right. Well, this amendment for the Ventura Employees Association, item 36, is a recommendation similar to the last one for your board to commence public hearing, to waive the second hearing on the second amendment, and then at the conclusion of today's hearing to adopt the recommended amendment. And out of respect for your time and sensitive to the remaining agenda items, I'll just summarize by saying the exact same circumstances and methodologies and implementation models that I just explained for IOE, that were utilized for SEIU and management, also were true for VEA. I will add, however, that we did meet with VEA on August 26th to present these findings. The VEA bargaining team and its council agreed to the county proposed increases that were above and beyond the existing MOA. And again, this is in recognition for those classifications that were significantly behind market. The overall increase on average was about 6%, again, with a cap of 9%. The overall cost over the 3-phase implementation is $282,000 per year, and the net county cost is $42,200. And again, this will be phased in over 3 installments, the first of which will occur on September 28th. And I was remiss in our first agenda item. I would like to thank Labor Relations staff, Megan Cooper, our student intern, Amber Butler, our newest Labor Relations analyst, who did a lot of the fiscal impact analysis on this, and Mike Curnow, the other Labor Relations analyst. And a huge thank you to Kelly Shirk and her staff, in particular Kelly Akers, who has spent a few weekends in her office programming these changes. they have been a tremendous asset in implementation of these county-wide initiatives. So, and of course to your board and the CEO staff for their continued support.
All right. Before we do the motion on this, I think this is an appropriate time for us to point out that this is ushering in almost another era of labor relations, and that we went back to the unions, opened up on our own, and offered these increases for people that were significantly behind in the market. We would not have been able to do that if we didn't have confidence that we knew what the fiscal impacts were going to be of that, if we knew what the impacts were going to be at each one of the classification levels. That couldn't have happened if you and your staff didn't spend countless hours answering questions and getting the exact data for us, because we didn't want to adopt this blindly. And so the public doesn't know just how long and hard you work to try to answer questions. And I know that I was aware of how much you spent trying to answer just my questions, not just the other supervisors and stuff. So I just want to say thank you, because that hard work allowed us to not just give something that I think is going to pay huge dividends in terms of long-term labor relations and trust that we really have, that we value our employees, but it allowed us to do that with confidence rather than just do it with a hope and a prayer that we were getting it right. So I want to say personally thank you very much to you and all the people that helped you with all those calculations. Catherine Rodriguez, yourself, and the people in Kelly Shirk's office and stuff. So thank you very much.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I also, I mentioned that to our CEO yesterday, that I wanted him to personally thank the staff, the excellent work that you have done, you and Catherine and Jim and the CEO's office and Carol and Paul and so forth, and our county council for the excellent work that you've done. And this is the end result of this excellent work that you work with our association and our employees. So I also want to commend you for the excellent job.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a motion to approve. That's been seconded. We're ready to vote. Does somebody have their light? You have your light on, Supervisor Parks? Supervisor Floyd? Somebody? Oh, okay. There we go. We want somebody's light went off there. All right. Great. 37.
Thank you.
Second edition of the County Waterworks Manual.
Good morning, Chairman Bennett, Supervisors, Mr. Powers. I'm Herb Schwinn with the Engineering Services Department of the Public Works Agency, and I'm here to give you an overview of the proposed Waterworks Manual Revision, second edition. Hopefully I have a presentation. Thank you. Since the county's Waterworks Manual is really a compilation of requirements of several agencies and districts, there are other representatives here today to assist in the event that we have any questions. We have representatives from the Fire Protection District and from the Resource Management Agency that have participated in collaborating in putting together this second revision. The purpose of the Waterworks Manual is to establish uniform policies and procedures for design and construction of water supply facilities within county rights-of-way and on projects subject to approval by the county, including systems that provide fire protection service in the County Fire Protection District. It's applicable to potable water systems, and it does not apply to recycled water systems. And the original Waterworks Manual was developed in 1965. And since that time, there have been 6 revisions, with the most recent revision having been in 1998. It's applicable to facilities or systems listed here. I won't go into them in great detail, but fundamentally what it says is if the facility is located within real property controlled by the county, serves or plans to serve water to a development project in the county where the county has jurisdiction,
or if it's a system that provides fire protection function within the jurisdiction of the Fire Protection District, it's subject to this Waterworks manual. I'd like to go over the main drivers for water requirements. There are two main drivers for water requirements. One is the domestic requirement for bathing, washing, cooking, cleaning, and similar demands. The California Waterworks standards, which were last updated in June 2014, are directed at this requirement. The other driver is the fire protection requirement. And the Fire Protection District has established the Ventura County Fire Code, which draws from various standards, including the International Fire Code, the California Fire Code, and the National Fire Protection Association standards. Each of these sources set standards relating to storage requirements, source capacity, flow requirements, and various other system characteristics and capabilities. The Ventura County Waterworks Manual melds these two requirements together into one manual. The Waterworks Manual needs to be revised to stay current with the California Waterworks standards and the Ventura County Fire Code, each of which are periodically updated. Additionally, there have been concerns over the last several years that will-serve letters have been issued without determining the effect that the additional connections may have on the level of service for all connected to the system, as well as the system's ability to satisfy firefighting requirements. Due to the nature and extent of the revisions required, it was determined that a new addition was in order rather than just modifying the existing manual through page changeouts. The principal changes to the Waterworks Manual that are included in the second revision are the requirement for the preparation and submission of a water availability letter by the water purveyor to the county prior to issuing any will-serve letters. I'll discuss this in a little bit more detail later. Provision for the fire code official to authorize deviations in the case of structures constructed to high standards of fire resistance. Inclusion of the National Fire Protection Association standards for fire flow and duration for commercial and industrial structures. The recategorization of wells from 3 categories to 2 categories, and the requirement that a system expansion of 20% or more service connections shall be designed for 40 psi operating pressure. And that is a recent change from the that recently came out in the state waterworks standards.
I just, so that we don't lose this, you move on with your slide, I'd like to go to the second bullet point. Provision for a fire code official to authorize deviation from structures constructed to high standards of fire resistance. What kind of deviations are they now going to be able to authorize?
I'd like to invite some of my help from the Fire Protection District here to come discuss that. This is Larry Williams from the Fire Protection District that's helped collaborate on this.
Good morning, Chair Bennett and members of the board. There were already some deviations in the current existing water manual based on fire sprinkler systems, higher standards of construction that allowed reduction in fire flow based on type of construction. What we've done is looked at some of the areas for potential build out of small infill projects, and in lieu of making an entire system come up to compliance for an existing area due to a very small build out, allow some deviations with built-in fire protection to sort of maintain the characteristics of what the system was for the primary area, especially in these older areas such as El Rio, Island Acres type area. But we do have some of those throughout the county, but they are all listed in the manual.
So if the new structure is built to high standards, then you may allow them an exemption on having to update the old structure to those standards. Is that what you're saying?
Well, when you're dealing with an addition, there are already exceptions for additions and not have to come up to new standards on the fire flow requirements. But if you're looking at building new structures in an older area where the system may not be able to meet the higher fire flow standards, then we can analyze those on a case by case to determine is that sufficient to reduce the fire flow to what the system can provide or what the system will provide for the majority of the community that it serves.
Okay.
While we've interrupted, not for you, Mr. Williams, but I just wanted to note how important I think that water availability letter is, and I believe that's new to the new change. And I think being able to require the water purveyor to have to write a letter saying that it does meet water criteria, that they do have the water to serve, have it signed off by an engineer and all that. I think that gives us a little bit more certainty in this time that we're not approving developments when there isn't the water available.
I would agree with everything you say. And I'll go into, in a minute here, I'll go into a little bit more detail about what the water availability letter consists of. It's more than just a letter. It includes an analysis and a number of other components that are required to show that there's actually been an engineering analysis that's gone into the system to evaluate its capacities and capabilities.
Yeah.
But I'll go into that in a little more detail.
And then also pointing out that you're saying just the will serve letters that have typically been the case. Sometimes they do give will serve letters, and they don't have the water to back them up, essentially.
They would. I think there was concern that will serve letters were issued, and the incremental effect of all these additional will serve letters was having a deleterious effect on the ability of the system to deliver both domestic water and water for domestic purposes and fire protection purposes. And there was a consensus among a lot of the county districts and agencies that somebody really needs to take a step back and analyze the impact of all this on the system and what the system's capability is.
Yeah, the cumulative impact of all these different will serve letters added up together, and then sometimes it can result in actually having a lower water quality.
Correct.
Yeah. So good move. Thanks.
Pardon?
Good.
Oh, okay.
Really good.
Okay, and let me go into some detail of what the water availability letter consists of. And it's, as I said, it's more than just a letter. The water availability letter requirements are similar to the state waterworks standards for an initial permit for a new system. The water availability letter must be signed by the purveyor's general manager or a member of the board of directors. It must also include a map of the service area with the APN served, a description of the existing system and any planned changes, a compliance worksheet, and that's a term of art here that I'll show you one later, that details the calculations used to determine compliance with the Waterworks manual standards, and a summary of the areas not in compliance and the plan for their upgrade to ensure compliance, and an engineering analysis prepared, signed, and stamped by a registered civil engineer. The engineering analysis must address both the current and the number of connections serviced, as well as the maximum number of connections proposed to be serviced, the system's average daily demand, the peak hour demand on the system, the required fire flow, both volume and duration, the domestic and fire supply requirements, the domestic and fire storage requirements, and the redundancy or reliability measures present to deal with unanticipated interruptions of service due to power outages and mechanical failures. These characteristics of a system, many of them are referred to and taken right out of the state waterworks standards. So a water availability letter could conceivably say, here's my system, it's capable of serving 600 connections. I currently have 550 connections. Therefore, I have capacities to serve an additional 50 connections. And if you could demonstrate that, then you could issue will serve letters against that bank, if you will, of 50 connections. That's the concept. So water availability letter would be developed initially at one time, and then if that demonstrates, the analysis demonstrates that you have additional capability, you issue will serve letters against it.
What's this going to do to our current purveyors? Are they ready for this? They've already done a lot of this kind of work anyway, or what?
This initiative was started several years ago. by my predecessor. And this Waterworks manual is actually a compilation, or it brings together many existing requirements that exist in the Ventura County Fire Code, through RMA requirements, and the existing Waterworks manual. It's no secret to the purveyors that this is coming. They're aware of it. We've held a number of public meetings and solicited their input on several occasions, which I'll go into a little later. But they're aware of it. Some of them will require upgrades. There will be costs associated with it. There's no question about it.
And so, I mean, even like Reddy, in the districts that he oversaw, would you be doing upgrades to do this kind of stuff? Or you already have plans ready that would, I'm just trying to figure out what is this, the hit to what they're doing, the impacts of this.
Good morning again, Reddy Pakala. At this time, we operate and maintain 4 water districts, Bell Canyon, Lake Sherwood, District 1, Moore Park, and Somers area. All of our districts actually exceed or meet all of the requirements. We have already all of the master plans, analysis done, what the new Waterworks manual requires. To answer your question, Supervisor Foy, we do not need to make any changes to the systems we have in place.
So you'd already have all the information that if some person came and said, I'm building 20 new homes over here, you could provide all that will call letter. It's not a big deal to you. Do you believe a lot of the other systems throughout the county are?
I believe there are some systems, especially in Island Acres and El Rio, for example. There are as many as 5 or 6 small mutual water systems. I have worked closely with Supervisor Zaragoza's office when this issue came up and tried to figure out how to help these small water systems. As Herb said, some of them do need to make some changes. Maybe adding another well, or maybe a storage facility, a pump station. But the good thing is all of the participants, the mutual water companies, have been involved in this process for several years. They are aware of what's coming.
Yeah, because I know over in Island Acre, I think there was some of the commercial work that was done down the main road over there, caused some problems for people to just clean up and remove and do their buildings because of water pressure and all the new laws. I guess, is this going to affect people that are already in process? I mean, because if you're already saying you have it, you could say, I can give that, you can do that, but we don't know what the rest can do. But, okay, so anyway, but under our situation, what you know, we're in good shape. We're not going to hold anybody up. We can provide all the service.
Yes, sir, that's for sure. Okay. We have been looking for these things for the last 15, 20 years. We made sure that we have proper fire flow. One area that may be challenging would be in the Knolls area, like Simi Valley. That's the county's area, but not the city. I'm not sure how that's going to be addressed by the...
Yeah, because I think the city does it, and they had stopped giving out permits because of water flow and some of that. I mean, they made some of these kind of things. Yeah.
But in that case, as you know, Supervisor Foy, the city council is the board of directors for that. Really, you do not have any jurisdiction on that portion of the water system.
All right, well, thank you.
But you know what, Mr. Chair, I think this water manual is really going to help. But I know that Reddy and I have worked with the water mutuals and Public Works and Jeff's people. Well, you're part of Jeff's people, but we have worked with those people over in El Rio and Island Acres. There's about 8 water mutuals there. And I think this is really going to help us because that Waterworks manual is going to give them what they need to make sure that they're complying with all the engineering analysis and rules and so forth. But I think this is going to help, and most of those mutuals are up to speed. Like, for example, Mike Barber's over in Nyland, and the El Rio Mutual is pretty good, and Cloverdale is pretty good, you know. So, but this is going to help tremendously.
Yes, sir. It does. So there are certain variances that they could apply on the fire flow side. So it'll help those mutual water company to gradually upgrade the system to come into compliance.
That's right. And I know that you've done a lot of work. You know, Jeff's people have done a lot of work on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions on this slide? This is an example or an exhibit of a compliance worksheet, and I realize it's hard to read, but it's just to give you a concept of this is an annex or an appendix within the Waterworks manual, and shows the different elements and contributors that needs to go into the analysis for the water availability letter. I wanted to take some time just to touch on storage requirements because this has been kind of a sensitive issue over the number of months and years that this has been debated. The Waterworks Manual provides methods for determining the amount of storage required by a system. Domestic storage requirements are based on state waterworks standards, while fire storage requirements are driven by the Ventura Fire Code. So what the Waterworks Manual has said, and there was a lot of discussion, debate with the Fire Protection District, purveyors, engineers, county staff, and so forth on how to configure this storage requirement. In all cases, what the Waterworks Manual currently says is in all cases, domestic storage requirements must be met. Domestic storage requirements are defined by the state waterworks standards. Fire storage requirements are additive to the domestic storage requirements and must be met unless an analysis shows that the storage shortfall is compensated for and can be replenished within a specific amount of time by additional source supply. And that amount of time is approximately 8.5 hours. So basically what it says is if you don't have the storage capacity to satisfy the combined domestic and fire storage, if you can demonstrate through your analysis that you can replenish the shortfall that would be used up in the event of a fire within 8.5 hours, that would be satisfactory.
Yep, and you're probably going to share this with us. The storage at one time was just above ground capacity. Now
it doesn't
combined,
specify. It doesn't
combine now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the concept that you could use supply to replenish any shortfall in fire storage, if your supply is provided by a well that's drawing water from underground, then that's satisfactory, and if you can demonstrate that. And
at one time, didn't we have or maybe there was some confusion that only above ground storage was?
Yes,
okay,
that
but now
that was the issue, Supervisor. Mm-hmm.
Below ground and above ground.
Yes,
okay.
As long as your source of supply, whether it's a commercial supplier or a well that's pumping ground water from underground, as long as you can demonstrate you have capacity over and above the domestic supply requirement and it's sufficient to replenish the fire storage or what would be used in the event of a fire, yes, that's satisfactory.
And that's going to help quite a few of the water mutuals too.
I think so. And that was the Fire Protection District did a lot of analysis and discussions and so forth to allow us to arrive at that compromise, if you will.
Could I ask what happens in the interim? If you have, was it 8.5 hours or something you're saying, that they can get more water? What happens if they're putting out a fire and there's no more water? You have to wait?
Well,
I mean, is that the principle, or the fire department has to go get a tanker truck, or what's going on here?
And the last part is, in no case shall the storage provided be less than that required for fire storage. So in most cases, the requirement for domestic storage would exceed the fire storage, in most cases, by a factor of several times. So in the event that you did have to fight a fire and you used whatever was required for the fire storage, in most cases the domestic storage would exceed that and you'd still have water in storage. During the time you're consuming the water for fighting a fire, you're also replenishing. So that was the compromise that was made. That and I think the other part was, and we can ask the fire department to discuss it, but I think they realized the likelihood that you'd have 2 successive fires that quickly without being able to replenish your supply. After you demonstrated that you have a capability to do so, the likelihood is very remote.
Okay. And this is a lessening of restrictions than what currently is in place?
This not really a lessening. It's a restating. It's just that this approach with the Waterworks Manual and the Water Availability Letter enforces it a little bit more, and it introduces some discipline, if you will, that requires people to actually
do the numbers and do the analysis and analyze their system and demonstrate that they're complying with the Waterworks manual.
And the water mutuals have asked for this too. We've had meetings and meetings with those folks, and they want that water mutual and to give them a guidelines, a protocol, and what to do. So I think it's really going to help. No more guessing, right? It's there, and that's what they need to follow.
I think that's a good point. I think most of them are saying, just show me where the goal line is, right. So I can get there.
Since we're on the topic, is it fair to say that overall these are actually tighter requirements, tighter regulations, because they require more? However, there may be some places in here where some compromises were made. For example, you can now use groundwater as backup, whereas before it had to be above groundwater.
I think that's accurate. I think it's a clarification in many cases.
Thanks.
Exactly.
We do recognize that there are going to be some costs associated with this. There will be engineering costs for the purveyor to prepare the engineering analysis required by the water availability letter. There will be a special coordination deposit of $904. That is a fee that was approved during the budget process for processing these types of things. And that's when you submit your water availability letter. And then if the water availability letter demonstrates that upgrades are necessary, then there are going to be costs associated with that for the purveyor.
Sorry to keep interrupting. You have a potential that groundwater will fluctuate depending on seasons and all. And I'm just wondering how we address that when we're thinking about major health and safety issues like fire.
There's a section in there in the Waterworks manual that was contributed by the Watershed Protection District and the folks that manage and categorize and certify wells. So that's addressed, and it's consistent with the way they manage the pumping from the aquifer. Does that?
Right, I'm just wondering, you may get approval, and then groundwater may severely decline, and it isn't available, and that's what you had based your approval on. I'm just wondering what happens in those kind of situations. That there's some kind of monitoring.
This does not manage.
Plan B.
This Waterworks manual doesn't manage the aquifer. There are people that do that, and this doesn't do it. We relied on input from them to address that part of the Waterworks manual.
Well, and I do appreciate what it does do, though.
Lastly, this draft has been coordinated with and collaborated on by the Fire Protection District, the Watershed Protection District, Public Works Transportation, in the event that some of these systems may require road encroachment permits, Public Works Water and Sanitation, the Resource Management Agency, LAFCO. A number of water purveyors were invited to contribute, review, and participate in the development of it, engineering consultants, and we submitted it to the State Department of Public Health, which has now, I understand, become part of the Water Resources Control Board up in Santa Barbara, and they reviewed it, and they commented favorably on it. So input was solicited from water purveyors in May of 2012, May of 2014, and then within the last month, we held a public comment session where we invited any purveyors to come and give us their input. That was held on August 20th. So the recommendation before you today is to adopt the Ventura County Waterworks Manual, 2nd edition, and to find the adoption exempt from CEQA. That concludes my presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you and all the folks that worked on this, because I know that all of us have worked with you, but you've done a lot of work and running around and getting it together and having people look over the manual and getting all this information and recommendations and so forth. But I just want to thank you, the fire department too, and for all the extra work, and I'm sure that the water purveyors are, there's some things here that's going to cost them some money, but at least they have a guideline or protocol in what to follow, and I just want to thank you for the outstanding work that you've done.
Thanks to your office, too.
Supervisor Long.
Yes, thank you very much. It has been extensive amount of work over the last couple of years, as you've relayed, and obviously long time coming since we hadn't had any updates in 20 years, and significant piece of that on the availability question. So to have the purveyors engaged and I'm sure in agreement as best they can at this point as a big step. And I appreciate the work. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I am very much appreciative, particularly of the water availability letter and requiring not just a letter, but actually the backup for it. I think that's really important. We've seen, I think it was even the Newhall Ranch project where they were using what they referred to as paper water. When it came down to it, there really wasn't the resources to back it up. So I'm glad that we're making that happen.
I'd like to point out, certainly in the city of Ventura, it's become extremely controversial. The citizens are asking the question, you're asking us to cut back by 20%. At the same time, you're getting ready to approve, lots of new housing, and they're going, how's that add up? And this concept of making sure that you go beyond a will serve letter, which is that you actually have the water available, is just a rational, common sense concept that you ought to have. And if you're going to live in a drought-stricken area like Southern California, so it's good. I know it's taken a long time for us to get there. It's good that we've gotten there. I do have questions about the issue of the interaction between people relying on groundwater as yes, we have sufficient supply, and actions that are going to have to be taken to regulate groundwater that have now come about as a result of the state legislation that's out there and the other things that are out there. That's not one that should cause us at this point in time to change our manual, but we may, based on how those groundwater regulations go. I would like to ask your department to monitor that, because if there is a need to adjust these policies so that somebody's not sitting there relying on groundwater that's not really there, that's quote paper groundwater. I'll give you an example. I mean, we have 700,000 acre feet of credits in the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. To give you an idea, they pumped 151,000 last year, right? Over, we're still way over the sustainable amount. Sustainable amount theoretically is 100,000 or less. To have 700,000 acres of credits, it's not sustainable for anybody to think that water is all going to be able to be pumped out of the aquifer. Yet I could see somebody saying, well, we'll use our credits to justify this. So I'm happy to support, to approve this now, as long as staff is going to stay alert to what modifications. And I know Mr. Pratt should be a good source of interaction between your department and what's happening with Fox Canyon, the folks regulating Fox Canyon, to make sure we pay attention to that. Right? Yeah, exactly, and that it's really sustainable. If you're not sustainable, in the long run, you put everybody in your society at risk if you're not sustainable. And you've seen over and over again where people have gotten to the point where they don't have a sustainable option.
And Mr. Chair, you can have if that happens, you can have a moratorium for a while until that groundwater comes up again. Something to look at.
Great.
I'd like to move that we approve this.
Well, I have one other comment.
I'm
as we're getting ready to vote on this. I'm sorry that we go through periods where everybody goes, oh, there's too much government regulation. Oh, I hate these government regulations. That it's very easy and popular to hate that. This is government regulation, what we're doing right here, right? Mm-hmm. And yet I think most people would say it's common sense. It's in the public's good. You need to have this. I mean, what? You have a regulation that says you should have adequate fire flow before you build a house. So just in defense of regulation is, there are times when it's gotten inappropriate, et cetera, but I think in general what we're trying to do here is common sense regulation that is in the public's interest and is good for everybody.
And it's a health and safety issue.
Sure. Right. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, we need the motion.
Ryan?
And the second, and we're ready to vote.
Nobody came out to speak on or for it from your purveyors or anything?
Not since we had our session on the 20th. I did get some feedback when we had our session on the 20th when we invited all the county purveyors.
I know you were going to say, I didn't hear, did you say what was their reaction and stuff?
I got some minor comments. I think, as Supervisor Zaragoza was saying, most of them have welcomed it because they'd like to see the goalpost set.
I think you've got somebody right here.
Oh, okay.
You're going to, Chair will tell you what you have to do, though.
Hi, Jared Bouchard, General Manager at the 10 Islands Beach. Sorry, I just ran in here. I got behind today. And we're not here to oppose this at all. We understand why the county's doing it, had an opportunity to review the multiple revisions that have come forward. However, we would like to ask when this gets adopted, that there's some continuance or allowance for time for it to get into place, as all of us will have to go out. Excuse me, I'm out of breath. I ran in here. And hire consultants in order to get the water availability letter to the county at some expense. Our district in 2010 went through an infrastructure review that, under a different methodology, basically established what it is the county's looking for and paid a significant amount of money for it. Now we've got to go back and look at the county's methodology and have that engineer be able to stamp that letter. And so the net result of adoption of this today, effective tomorrow, is that no building permits will be issued. And we've got an economy recovering. Some places, I understand why the county's doing it, don't have sufficient water supplies or means. And you guys need to take care of that issue, and that's part of what this water availability letter is doing for you. But for some of us who have engineered our systems, done our due diligence, have water portfolios available, people looking to build homes or structures within the county area served by us, we're not going to be able to issue permits to them until that consultant review is done, which could be a period of 3 months or so by the time they're able to complete that and get it back out to the county. So that's just our request, that there is some continuance of time to allow, and I don't know how you do that, to allow those of us that have established portfolios and engineered systems that could be looked at to allow us to do that, to be able to keep that process rolling. That's the request. Thank you.
Do we have anything
time for them?
Like that to make sure we don't limit what people have already stepped up thinking they're doing? Or
We did have this discussion when we met on the 20th of August. I really don't know how you do that. You could have people issuing will-serve letters in the interim before we are able to review their own analysis of their own system to see if it has the capacity or the capability to support the additional demand.
So we're not changing anything we've been doing for 20 years as it is?
Not really. It's enforcing
should we put something a little bit further in the future, give people some period of 90, 120 days, or whatever it takes them to get this together? I mean, this is pretty, usually you don't have something that starts good today and boom tomorrow, and then you put everybody, because you have a lot of people that are doing a whole lot of process.
Yes, you're right, Supervisor. And this wouldn't do anything to anybody that's currently receiving water, and any purveyor that's currently delivering water wouldn't do anything to them. It would just say, you need to analyze the system and give us your own analysis of your system's capability to add new service.
No, I understand what you're talking about, but you've got a lot of people that have said, I'm ready to build my house, plans are done, here, go get your, and now all of a sudden this thing could be held for 30, 90. If I'm with a water district that could take 6 months to get this done, now I've just stopped everything I've been doing. So that's my only concern, where I think that's where he was coming from too.
Yes, it is. I understand.
I think that's, but I mean, should we have a period of time? Because a lot of times ordinances start and it takes 90, 120 days. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's thousands of permits out there. I'm sure there's a few, but it could stop a few. And especially people, if it sounds like if somebody was coming to Reddy or coming to him, it sounds like they're already up and all these are fine anyway. But I know it's kind of hard to make an assumption what's fine and what's not fine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know.
Can we ask County Council?
A question.
Leroy, can you give us anything on that? Or
Well, yeah, I may
It's a
have
manual?
to ask Eric to comment a little, but it's not an ordinance.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't have the same operative date kind of.
It's a manual then.
It's a policy, it's a procedure that the county follows, and it's built basically on existing law, and it's just how we implement that.
So we're
Is that
just-
fair? So, it's not, like an ordinance is usually, there's a 30-day delay.
So we're just basically updating the manual is what we're doing.
Updating and stating, in specific terms, how we're going to process things under our current authority. We're really not adding authority, it's just implementing
So it shouldn't affect the Channel
current
Islands.
authority. Now, I don't know administratively
Yeah.
if they could
What I
phase it in.
As we went through the development of this and we looked at the different sources of policy and requirements, there's nothing in this revision that doesn't currently exist in either a Ventura County Fire Code requirement, state water standards requirement. There's nothing really over and above in this that currently exists that should be complied with. What this Waterworks manual did was pull them all together and say, this is how you're going to demonstrate compliance.
Right. And I agree with you. My only concern was that I'm ready to go and somebody comes to them and says, okay, here we go. We did everything everybody's asked to, got our permits and move, walk in. Whoops, you're on hold now until I don't know when, because who knows when the purveyor is going to do that.
I'd answer that question. Jeff Pratt with Public Works Supervisors. We're not doing anything differently with this than we were doing right now. We're already telling people no permits. So that's already in place. I've been involved. Supervisor Zaragoza's office, they've been up in arms because we're saying no permits. So just understand that if we did that, just started giving somebody 30 days or 90 days, that's new from what we're practicing right now. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Well, that's new information.
And they want, my people over in El Rio want this. They wanted the protocol. They wanted to find out what to do to.
You weren't telling people that, or people out there were happening? I'm just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Again, I want to make sure that we understand. We're not here to oppose what's going on. I mean, we originally had some opposition to it and thought there were some other ways, but we understand that the county needs to do it. However, I would say the information I have is different than Mr. Pratt. We have issued multiple water availability and will serve letters in the last 2 months. We had to modify them in order to meet the county's request for them at the planning desk. People are going to come in, and as you said, they're already in the permit process. They can get through building and safety. It's the next step that they need that water availability, and we're going to hang them up. I know of 4 properties that are looking to be in construction that are down to district. We kind of let them know about it, and they said, wow, well, that's going to completely hold us up. Now they've got loans out there, everything else on their process, and the difficulty that all of us water purveyors were in was, do we go out and pay a consultant to address, and I take a little bit of issue with the fact that this is the same as the old code and we're not asking for anything more. There's a significant amount of work that has to go into that demonstration within the worksheets in here, and that's what the consultants are needed for, and it's going to take them time to put that together for us because they have to stamp it and say that they've looked at every step of the County Waterworks Manual. We have to use that formula in order to establish it. And we could not go out and sign a consultant agreement until we knew what the regulation was going to say. Again, this is now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, third edition since we started this 4 years ago, third rewrite of it. So had we gone out 4 years ago and had a consultant do it, it's different today. So we had to wait for it to get adopted.
Well, what would be your thought of how you would work?
If we had 60 days to continue through a process where we're able to give the same water availability will serve letter that we have been issuing for the last 3 months that we rewrote to meet the needs of the county planning to get them through there, that would give us sufficient time to get our consultant engaged. We have the proposal there. We wanted to wait before we signed it to make sure that it got adopted as it was presented. And we're going to get them to work on it and try and get it done as quickly as possible.
So you've been different than what some of the counties been doing in the sense they've been saying no permits. You haven't been saying that.
It's a will serve letter.
Well, that's not.
Will serve
yeah, the process that we had engaged for many years with the builders changed recently, and the county began rejecting our standard will serve letter. So we rewrote that as a water availability and will serve letter that addressed our long-term capacity, our capability for firefighting, and our water portfolio, and that has been accepted on these last few projects that have gone through.
So I see Mr. Pratt shaking his head. So is that, can we still do that, or what's that?
Yeah.
It's my understanding that he can. This seems like a tempest in the teapot because we're holding people to the same standards all over. So Jared has taken and modified his approach, and we've worked with him. So I'm not seeing what the issue is here. And I understand that he's got to go out and get a new waterworks manual, but he's suggesting that we're going to shut him down on the stuff we've been doing, and I just don't think that's the case.
So you're still going to allow him to do the same thing that you've been giving him and say it's okay until he gets his 60 days, or what?
So, I don't want to get ahead of the guys here, but that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
So, Jared, he's concerned about the 4 people that you have on the process?
Oh, there he is, Chris.
Whatever it takes.
I'd appreciate if that was.
I know, but
I'd like to leave Mr. Pratt on for a
I'm
minute
sorry.
if I could, please, right?
Chris looks like he's getting antsy in the seat there.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers, Chris Stevens with the Resource Management Agency. And since I think it was a letter that I wrote about 2.5 years ago that started this whole process, what was happening at that time was we were getting folks coming to the counter ready kind of at the last stage of the development process with their building permits. We would have a will serve letter. We would go out and do an analysis and determine that in fact the water, they didn't meet fire flow or there was some other water issue. They were caught at the very end of the process after quite an investment in it. So what we said was we're going to require that there be some analysis done on these will serve letters and water availability letters to make sure that the property owner isn't getting caught at the end of the process after all of that investment. So we started a couple of years ago requiring that the will serve letters and water availability letters be signed by engineers or by general managers. And since that time, to my knowledge, we have not had any of these problematic letters that have gotten to the end of the process and found that we, in fact, didn't have the water. So we kind of addressed that problem in the interim. But what we've been working on now since this time that's in front of you today is to get that waterworks manual up to snuff so that the process is laid out very clearly. So I understand Jared's concern, which is they've been submitting letters that have met the standards. They perhaps aren't quite to the procedural, or form that's required by the waterworks manual. So there's a little bit of an overlap issue there.
But they're sufficient, right?
To my knowledge, Jim and I was just checking with Jim McDonald. We haven't had anyone get to that part in the process with a properly signed letter that didn't prove to be accurate. So,
Mr. Chair, can I add? And I think you've done an excellent job because I was getting concerns in my office that they went from 1 to 10. In the 10th item, do you have enough water? And by that time, they spent thousands of dollars. Right. And now we reversed it and put it on top to make sure that they have sufficient water, make the will serve letter be there. And I think what Jared, you're concerned about the 4 people that you have in the hopper, is that what it is? Can I just share that, Mr.? Just to clarify that.
Yeah, I don't know how many more are. I guess, if we're willing to accept the letter the way it is until we get the engineer stamp, what this waterworks manual requires is that the water availability letter is stamped by a California registered engineer that says you have this many connection units and this many left available. Our water availability letter doesn't say that today, nor does it have that engineer stamp. It's been written and signed by me.
It's in the process, right? He's okay.
As long as that's still acceptable, then I think we can keep people moving through, and we will get it done as quickly as possible.
Well,
60 days?
If I want to jump in here, basically staff's, with Chris's initiation 2.5 years ago, we basically said, let's move the water availability question from the end of the process to the beginning of the process. Then we said, okay, while we're doing that, we're going to do that right now, even though we haven't updated our manual yet, all right? We're just going to start requiring that to be at the beginning of the process. And so what is the standard to prove you have water availability was whatever made common sense to you guys and whatever made common sense to them. You said at least it has to be submitted by an engineer or the manager, right? Now we've come up with the actual manual that clarifies that to a greater extent, right? It has to be signed by an engineer, right? Not just by by the property, by the executive director of the agency. So just the pure fundamental question I have, does that mean that tomorrow, if we adopt this today, tomorrow you would say this isn't signed by an engineer, so you have to go get it signed by an engineer before it's acceptable, one. And two, how hard is it, if it was being signed by the general manager, how hard is it to get the engineer to come on board? And my third question is, how long have they known that they were going to have an engineer sign these things, right? If they've known it for a long time, they want to be ready for this day.
They have known for quite a while. However, I will say, I can understand their position. It's like, it's not approved yet. I don't know what the final product's going to be. I see now that the drafts that have been reviewed over the last several years have all said it's got to be signed and stamped by a civil engineer.
And what is in your professional judgment, how difficult is it going to be for a water district to get a civil engineer to sign that? Is that going to be a 3 month, 6 month kind of?
The timeliness?
To be able to do that.
Probably 60 days, something like that. It would depend. It depends. It depends on the size, the size of the system, the complexity of the system, how big a service area it includes. So if you're hitting the ground with a blank sheet, hitting the ground.
Right now, what is your department's position going to be if we approve this today, with just as you have recommended it, and tomorrow somebody comes in and says, we haven't had time to get the civil engineer yet, but we'd like to submit this with just the general manager? What you guys are going to say, it doesn't follow policy anymore.
We would consult with, that's correct, I'd say that, and but I'd consult with RMA and the fire district and say, based on your familiarity with this area and this system, are you comfortable with this, or do you want to wait?
So you guys would internally make the decision whether you are comfortable waiting.
That's my response.
So, and that may be because of what you heard from Reddy, that we're all in compliance. We know that it's capable, or is that where, or he was saying himself, Jared was saying the same thing? Is that what you're talking about? Where
you're asking me personally?
Well, yes, I'm just saying that. Is that what you're talking about when you say there's some variable?
Yes,
because
I would defer to the judgment of and I'd consult with RMA and the Fire Protection District, because they have a lot of familiarity with a lot of these systems and their capability to satisfy both domestic and fire.
Is there a limit to how long you would be using that judgment before you said, sorry, you've got to have the engineer? That's the rule.
Maybe I'll new from.
I mean, I'm serious. I don't want to have it be 2 years from now. 2 years from now, we're still using our judgment. We're either going to go with these rules or we're not.
That's fair.
And giving people some reasonable time to adjust. But what I don't want to do is have us approving and then finding out they don't have water availability. So when in doubt,
that would be
when in doubt, these things should not be approved until they can prove it. I mean, the burden needs to be on them. There is this little bit of an awkwardness, although they knew the engineers were supposed to sign until the thing got adopted. I could see why they wouldn't actually have a contract yet. So in your professional judgment, what is the length of time that we should even hear from you that verbally you guys are going to give people 60 days?
In my judgment, I would say approximately.
That after 60 days, you got to have the engineer on board, right? You got to have the engineer signing by then. Is
yes.
We
need to see the analysis.
Right.
Yes.
But you still need to see the analysis. And if you have something questionable, you're going to hold it up until the engineer signs. Because what we don't want to have is in this next 60 days a flood of everybody coming in with availability letters.
Right.
That's so I mean I'm fine saying, hey, sometimes you have to be held up. And then my question is, if we're at the beginning of the process, how much does that really hold the development up if at the beginning of the process they know they've got a 60-day delay? Mr. Pratt, come on up and answer that one for me.
I don't. There are water agencies in various states of distress. Jared runs a fairly sophisticated water agency. He's told you he's already studied it. He knows where his water comes from and how much he's got. I can't think it's going to take him a long time to figure out with an engineer whether or not on an application he's got water. But to answer your question more fully, there are those water agencies out there that
The small mutuals that people El Rio, that some of them are a lot more sophisticated than others, and some have no sophistication, and it's going to be very sketchy with them, and that's going to be something that they need to do up front, and it might hold things up because they don't meet but once a month or once every quarter. It might hold, the board doesn't meet, it might hold things up a bit, but it might be necessary to do that for public safety and health reasons.
So in your opinion, what's the solution to this rub here? Is what staff is saying, is if in their opinion it's okay, they should approve it, and if it's questionable, they should hold it up? And
in my opinion, what we've been doing right now has been working in the community, and those that have been getting the no's I just talked about will still get the no's, and those that have been getting the yeses that I've talked about will get the yeses temporarily.
And that in 60 days, in your opinion, feel like the right amount of time to say, then after that, you've got to have the engineer?
It feels like a maximum amount of time.
Maximum amount of time.
I think where you can get that flexibility, and when you're uncomfortable, you know you're uncomfortable for a reason, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's reasonable.
That's a good point.
But this, at the end of the day, Jeff, this, like you said, some of those small mutuals don't have the money, don't have the resource. Some are going to be just held up for a long time, aren't they?
Have deferred capital improvements forever, deferred maintenance, have systems in serious distress. Yeah, there are going to be some that are just, it's going to take some serious capital investment to get to where they need to be.
And they should be held up because they don't have the availability, actually, right?
Absolutely.
So I would just like to be clear here. It sounds to me like we're adopting this policy. It's not an ordinance, so we don't have to craft in an exception because it's not an ordinance in terms of when it starts. But what I don't want to do, and part of why I don't want to do that, is I don't want a bunch of people coming in and saying, you have to approve this because it's within the 60 days by any means. I want staff to have full ability to say no, but staff can, in their discretion, say yes if they're really confident that it's just a procedural issue and that the water availability analysis done by the general manager is legitimate. Does that capture the?
I think you've been doing it. Larry, you're good with that? Okay. Yeah. Sounds like it's what you've been doing.
On board for that?
Yeah, that's good.
Staff's on board.
That's good.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
County Council, we okay with that?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Glad you made it, Jerry.
Right. Okay. Great. Okay. All righty. Now we have a motion and a second and time to vote. Your board needs to get you something for your heart to be able to run faster, so you're not breathing so hard when you get here, right? All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Right.
Jerry, you ran all the way from Channel Island?
Yeah. Felt like
Thank
it,
you.
right? Yeah. Okay, we are.
And I just think that just is an example of these mutuals need to look internally and start talking across their balkanized borders about how they can do a better job for the community they're serving. And it may mean some of them have to change.
I was going to say, we're going to be taking over water district, we're going to see some combinations of some, or whatever mergers, whatever it takes to do it.
They need to, for the interest, for the good of the public.
Supervisor, we've worked on that, and Reddy Pacalina have talked to the mutuals of even working together in partnership, so you're absolutely right. We need to
Reddy, it's good to hear you've done a good job to make sure we're there when this happens, so that's great, thank you.
Balkanized water districts don't work. It's part of why Australia got rid of them, but I'll tell you, they are, trying to get anybody to say, well, yeah, you guys should all combine with me. Everybody's going to want, people are not going to want to give up that authority.
When you have 8 mutuals in a small area like El Rio, my goodness, that's what we're trying to partner them. But you're right.
Yeah, common sense says it's not good government, but getting any one of them to give up is.
And it's a safety issue. It's a health and safety issue.
All right, we're at item 38. And we promised to make this one controversial just so you feel good about leaving. Ready?
Good afternoon, Chair Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers, Reddy Pacala with Water and Sanitation Department of the Public Works. This item before you is an update, a revision to the urban water management plan that your board has adopted back in 2011. Department of Water Resources reviews all of the urban water management plans submitted by those water purveyors who provide at least 3,000 acre feet per year or provides water supply to more than 3,000 people. So District 1 is the only district within our service area that falls under this requirement under the Urban Water Management Plan Act. And we have been preparing these reports for the last 6 times. This report that we submitted in 2011 was a 2010 update requirement. Just recently, June of this year, we received some written comments about our plan we submitted a few years ago, and they requiring us to make a change in methodology, how we figured out our population between the city and the county unincorporated area and Moore Park area. And we have made those changes, and we are recommending that your board adopt the resolution approving the revised plan. Subject to your approval, we will be sending to the state Department of Water Resources. At that time, state staff will send a report to the state legislature with all the water systems within the state of California. That concludes my verbal report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, we have any questions?
I'll go
we
through
tried.
detail by detail.
All righty. We're ready for a motion. A second. It's got to be something controversial here. That's right.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Reddy. That motion passes. We now have policy items. And the first policy item, I believe, is Supervisor Foy's recommendation.
I think that on the week of Thanksgiving, we would be in a situation having a meeting right there on Tuesday, and people are probably leaving, going to grandma's house and doing that. I think it would be an opportunity for us to cancel that meeting and give people that opportunity to be there. It's going to be harder on all our own staff who's probably not going to be around either. Be good. Huh? You second that? Okay, great.
I won't be supporting that. That takes us, when we look at our schedule, it takes us 4 weeks without a meeting, and I don't think that's appropriate for us to go there. We've tried to figure out what trade-off to make when we adopted our overall budget, because we have CSAC, the meeting there, and so it was, as we looked at the calendar, that's the kind of conversation that I would have had then and said, okay, let's have a meeting on one of these other days so that we can be off that day. But that's the day that we chose, when we had that. But
could be like
that's maybe that's my thought.
Is it correct that we have Veterans Day this year?
I believe that's correct. Matt? We do.
That is correct.
It's not 2015?
So it starts this year. So that makes the 11th, the 18th, and that would make the 25th and the 2nd as the day after Thanksgiving, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So that's a whole month. Switch what around?
So you say meet on the 2nd, and
the 18th is CSAC. And you can certainly hold a meeting without me, but we usually get at least 2 supervisors to attend, and we'd certainly welcome more.
I'm going to be attending.
On our schedule or anything, do we have anything on the schedule for this time?
There's nothing scheduled for
Nothing scheduled, so, no, okay.
I can switch a meeting, but I can't go. I can't
switch it to.
Well, what we could do is, I guess we could do that, and then we can go back and look. We have some time for November to go back and look at some other things if there's available.
If we can switch, is there a day that we can switch?
Well, I'm just saying, I just don't know what you have on the 18th, because we'd said no to the 18th. Is there something the week before? It's kind of hard to say.
The other possibility is you could have the meeting on the 2nd, which you normally cancel because staff trying to put together an agenda for staff. That means staff is putting together the agenda on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that's why we usually take off the meeting after
Tuesday
Thanksgiving.
After.
Or we can go on the 2nd amendment.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying, because, they're doing
either
that.
look at the 2nd, or you could look at the CSAC, or you could look at Veterans Day.
Have a meeting on the 2nd, and then just have staff plan something before that week of, they can look at it, not that week.
Go on the 2nd.
Could I just suggest so we can have so we don't just.
We should have the CEO
let's-
take a look
let's
at
just,
this,
Let's just table this till next week. Let's have another conversation next week about the site.
Okay, but as long as if you have nothing, don't put anything on there right now, so we don't
All right.
get a whole bunch of
That's-
people.
That's fair. Don't
Yeah,
put anything,
don't put anything on there
don't
so we
lock
can
that
just
thing
move
up.
forward.
But what we're trying to do is find a day that we could switch so that you could have the Tuesday off before
Right.
Thanksgiving, right?
Unless, because I don't know how much you got during. Yeah, I guess we could have a motion to continue then. We just change this to a motion to continue this till next week?
All right, so motion to continue till next week. We'll pull that up, and that way everybody can look. We can decide whether you want to do CSAC, whether who's going or not, and all that kind of stuff, right?
I'll be attending CSAC.
Okay, all right, then that makes it less likely to
Second.
make it then.
Well, there'll be-
And then the question will be the second, and we can have CO's office. We can have the CO's office also check about the possibility, how difficult is it for staff to put together the agenda for the Wednesday, the day in advance, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the one thing I wouldn't do is say have one less meeting. I would say we have to have the same number of meetings. Right? All righty. The next recommendation is also Supervisor Foy.
To reappoint Anita here to the Behavior Health, but also Mr. Nielsen, we're going to pull him off. He said he did not want to serve. So we'll just have Anita right now.
So you're changing the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm changing that recommendation to just one.
All right. Okay. It's been moved and
What's that?
seconded. We're ready to vote.
Just take Mr. Nielsen off and just Anita.
Mr. Nielsen has been wonderful. I'm sorry that he doesn't want to continue serving, and we also have his mother too is serving on there. But he has.
He's been good.
Even though he's not going to continue, he has just been wonderful. We really appreciate the work that he's done for, and reaching out to the community and being a spokesperson.
Good
He's
young
been
man.
great.
Yeah.
We're not getting a vote. There it is. All right. We have 50 through 53 correspondence agenda, and then we'll go 54. So move to receive and file the correspondence agenda. All right, we have a motion and a second for the correspondence agenda, and now item 54.
Good afternoon. Chair Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Powers, for the record, Kelly Shirk, County Executive Office, Human Resources. The board letter before you today recommends the creation of 17 new nursing classifications and the deletion of 29 former nursing classifications. This was a recommendation that has been worked on for several years in conjunction with Healthcare Agency, Labor Relations and CEO's Office, HR, and of course the Hospital Healthcare Agency. This is in recently negotiated contract with CNA. We created a wage grid, and this is a continuation of the implementation of that is by creating this new classifications of nurses. We're hoping that with this new series and the wage grid, we anticipate that the system will assist in retaining and recruiting qualified, skillful, and talented workforce to sustain high performance and delivery of quality health care. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? We're ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'll drag it on. Just a comment that this is hugely important. We've been needing this for many, many years, and it took a lot of heavy work by Kelly and the healthcare agency and your team and HR to put it together. It's very complicated. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I've been hearing this for a long, long time, and finally got it together. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready to vote. That motion passes. I predict. There we go. We're now going to go to closed session. County Council, will we have any announcements coming out of closed session?
Yes, there may be announcements.
From closed session. All right. We will come back from closed session to, we will adjourn from, we'll come back to adjourn right after closed session because of that, right? If there's an announcement. Yeah, we'll come back to adjourn. And we have APCD at 1 o'clock for the benefit of everybody, right? 1:30, everybody. So 1:30. Now, wasn't it nice to not have to stop at APCD at 11 o'clock today? Yeah, that would have been a mess, right, in the middle of all that. All righty, good. And lunch is served.